Alright, guys. What is up, everybody? It is another beautiful Sunday morning. I am your host, Bronson Fiore, joined by the always awesome Aaron Reynolds.
Hello. Hi. I'm awake.
Enthusiastic. Our
Very.
mod mommy wielder of our band hammer, Emily Hulslander.
Although it seems I have misplaced my band hammer because fucking Loki here has it.
And then finally, our lovely Lucifer Morningstar, our
I'm here
Loki.
for the mischief.
Hell yeah.
Of course you're
Uh,
here for the
we,
chaos. Jesus.
we decided to talk. So this week the episode's gonna be something a little different. I know normally we like cover the news and deep dive the news and bitch about the state of the game industry. Fun stuff, happy
As we
stuff
do.
that you all enjoy.
As we do.
This week we decided to go a little different. Because 4 or 5 days ago was the 30th anniversary of the PlayStation, and
Yeah.
which, man, that's a statement. Every time I say it, makes me feel ancient because PlayStation has been around for the majority of my life.
Yep.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, and then the other thing being, hey, talk about where PlayStation's going right now and why it may not be the best thing in the world.
That's
man,
I
foreboding.
mean,
Okay.
I
you
mean,
know. So, but
We'll get there.
I guess I'll get into it with a question for everyone, which is, what was everyone's first PlayStation? When was it? What was going on with it? You know,
Who wants to go first?
who's
Emily,
the
you should
lucky
go
one
first.
too?
me? Go
Yes,
first? Asshole. PS1, 98.
98.
98.
Oh,
And I remember the exact
Story,
games that
was
I
it
was
yours
playing
or did your
on.
brother get it?
So it was the family PlayStation. I didn't get my own until I got my brother's PS4.
mm-hmm,
Oh.
When he got his PS5.
mm-hmm,
But we always played on that PlayStation.
mm-hmm.
Hell yeah.
I
So,
So in my case, it's I didn't have one. We had one in the house. It was my dad's because he liked the sports games and the racing games. And he got it in like a year after it came out, so like '96. So it
mhm.
was so yeah, I was like 6 years old, and I really didn't play on it until like 2 years later, like because I like bought Crash Bandicoot for it because it looked cool and Metal Gear Solid.
Mm. Yep.
So yeah. Um,
We were a family that went years late on consoles just because it was cheaper that way. So
Mhm.
I was playing Super Nintendo when we were coming up close on the unveiling of the PS2, and my experience was my brother got the PlayStation 1 and only got to experience a few games. And on top of it, for whatever reason, I guess it's just due to being an old PlayStation, uh, it wouldn't work unless you taped the wires to the top of the PlayStation like disc tray.
so
I don't know
Shit.
why. Yeah,
What the
it just
shit?
wouldn't work at all. And so you had to take duct tape, tape the wires over on top of the disc tray, and that was what made it work.
So, in all honesty, that's so the PlayStation 1 was like very cutting edge at the time, and like it had weird shit like that. So like mine would overheat. Like the one in our house would overheat. And what we did is we would point a house fan at it. And like
All right.
yeah, and what I found out later was the proper way to fix this issue. Did not do this almost the entire time we had it. Is you just flip it upside down, and then the more heat gets out of the vents easier.
So that's great, but it's like a disc-based console. So that'd be
It's really
that'd be a
secure in
little
there though, like because remember it's one of those
okay.
systems you had to push down, so it's hooked
But
on.
it's just that this was happening at the same time that people were getting, portable CD players, and as a kid, I had much experience of just turning this thing around while doing my stuff, and oh, okay, well,
There goes
So
that.
so
There
there's
goes
some
that.
there's something that I found, like, because I didn't get a portable CD player till like 2002. Is if you get I bought like a really crappy one because that's what I could afford, and yeah, I would skip all the time and have problems. But then like I asked my parents for my birthday that year for like a good one, like one of those $100 ones. Never skipped at all.
Mhm.
Could shake the motherfucker, could flip it around. Like,
What
Really?
the
yeah,
fuck?
that was kind of like my first experience of like, oh, you get what you pay for. You get what you pay for. That was my
I mean,
first
Right.
fair.
experience of that.
Damn.
You know.
Yeah, so I just would never have taken a chance with a PlayStation.
Well,
First of all, because it wasn't my PlayStation, but second of all, my experience with discs being moved around while spinning.
that's fair. I mean, I didn't even know about it. Like, we were just pointing house fans at the system, and that was working. So
Exactly, right.
yeah,
Because like before PlayStation, it was like I don't know. There's a couple things like the 3D. Was the 3DO disc
3DO was
based?
disc based. Yeah, that's why the PlayStation was like a real oddity at the time, because the PlayStation
Right, that's what I'm saying.
was like the first disc system that wasn't a massive failure. You know?
Right. Exactly. So the idea of a console heating up or overheating is mind-boggling at the time.
Yeah, like it was insane because like and you could keep Sega Genesis or Super Nintendo on carpet. You could do all kinds of wild shit with those consoles that
Oh
you
yeah,
couldn't
you can
get
just.
away with on a
I'm in the
PlayStation.
middle of playing a level. I can't save, so I just pause. I turn the TV off. I go to sleep. I wake up, turn it on again. That's how you kept playing.
Yeah, because it was also like one of the earliest systems to use memory cards because CDs couldn't save and it didn't have internal memory.
That's
So
right. Yep.
so if you didn't own a memory card, yo dog.
No more writing the code for the level you're on in the back of your manual.
Uh, that
Man.
that died with the Saturn and the PlayStation. You
Yeah.
know, though another weird part is like everyone, the Sega Saturn in Japan at least for the first couple months sold better because of Virtua Fighter, and then that
Mm.
Oh.
totally. The second that Tekken came out, that completely changed, and no one ever looked at a Sega Saturn ever again.
Right. Right.
It had a lot of cool games in Japan, but at the time, you look back at it and you're like, and you listen to people who were like, in their teens and 20s in that era, it's like, no, the PlayStation was the obvious choice after the first couple months. Yeah.
Sure. Sure.
Uh,
Lucy, what was your first experience with PlayStation?
Yeah.
So my first was the PlayStation 1. I had a lot of the similar problems. It was my stepdad's before he married my mom. And then my first actual PlayStation I got for my birthday, they got me the PlayStation 2 shortly after it launched. Absolutely love that console. Never could figure out until I was an adult what the back of that the hole in the back of it was for, but apparently it was for a network adapter.
Oh, that must have
Um,
been Japan only. That I need to look at the back of a
or
PlayStation.
maybe it was a hard drive. It was a PlayStation 2, that one.
Oh, the PlayStation 2. Sorry. I thought you were talking about the PS1.
Yeah.
So that could be
No,
used
no.
for the PS1. That could be used for either. So you could hook a network adapter to it, or you could hook a hard drive to it. Only like 3 games used the hard drive. It was like Final Fantasy 11 and like 2 other ones.
Yeah, I remember
All right.
finding out about that in my older years.
Yeah.
PlayStation 3, I've had every single console. I mean quite literally, I've had every integration of the PlayStation consoles.
Does that
as they went through.
include a Vita? Does that include
Yes,
a PS
I
Vita?
had the Vita. I loved my Vita. I absolutely loved my PSP. I did not like my PSP Go. That went quick.
I like my
Okay,
PSP
man,
Go
the
like
idea.
I like the size and I like the form factor. But yeah,
I did not.
fair.
I kept losing it.
Mm.
So I went back to my regular PS4.
I
I had a couple. I collected those, and it was stupid back then because that was what my money went to when I was working my high school job. It's just buying the God of War edition, buying the Assassin's Creed one. Like I had the
there were
Star Wars one.
they did so many special edition PSPs. Like when I go to look, like I this year I had like some real nostalgia for the PSP because it turns 20 next year in
I'm gonna
America. It
buy
turns
one.
20 this year in Japan. Um, but it turns 20, and I like if you go search for like PSPs right on eBay, and you like go to the color selector, it just goes and goes and goes, man. It's like, yo,
I never.
do you want the lilac Taylor Swift one or a Hannah Montana one? Do you want the Mobile Suit Gundam Red? Do you want the Metal Gear Solid Green? Do you want the Dissidia like white with Final Fantasy art on the front? Like
Oh my.
there's so many PSPs. Uh when I finally cave and get one, I'll probably get rose pink. Um yeah,
It's not a bad color.
Sure.
yeah. I like the rose pink.
I want another God of War one.
Yeah, those are totally available, dude. You can get those. They sold a lot
Yeah.
of that version too, so you'd probably be able to get one pretty easy. Yeah, Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker camo. Like, there's a
Ooh, yeah.
and if you're willing to get a Japanese one and then hack the firmware so it has compatibility with everything, which is what I'd be doing, that opens up even more.
As much as I'd love to do that, I'm already having issues upgrading my PC.
Yeah,
Without just saying, fuck it. I'm sending it to somebody to do it for.
yeah. This kind of stuff is like not hard once you know what you're doing, but it's getting the knowledge to know what you're doing. Anyway, so yeah, I guess what we'll do. So that's PS1. What was everyone's favorite PS1 game? Out of curiosity.
Do we want to say favorite of the at the time we were playing it, or favorite, including what we've
Yes,
played
one of
since?
all time.
Let's both.
Yeah.
Let's do both. Do your favorite when you were but a young lad, and
Yes.
then today, or in Emily's case, a young lady.
I was a young lady back then as well.
Okay, fair enough.
Phase.
Fair enough.
Let's see. Of the time, I was mainly an N64 kid. I was not allowed on the
Same.
PlayStation very often.
I had just most of the PlayStation games were my dad's. I had a very small, tiny library of PlayStation stuff, by comparison.
Right. So I only played like a couple games, and it was like Spyro, and then 1080 snowboarding, which I would have to make my favorite just because I was already well on my way towards loving anything boarding. So
I thought 1080 was N64, and N64 was Cool Borders.
wait, was 1080? Well, what's the one that was on PlayStation?
Cool Borders. Cool Borders
Oh,
and
Cool
Cool Borders 2.
Borders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, I get those two confused. You might
Yeah.
understand why.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was it.
Twisted
All right.
Metal.
Which one?
Twisted
There's four of them. There's four of them on the PlayStation.
So so back then, I mean, it still remains my favorite PlayStation 1 games. I played all of them. I think my favorite's actually 3. It's
Three?
the Rob Zombie soundtrack.
Okay.
Being
Top notch.
But I also love number 2. I love the one where you can blow up the Eiffel Tower, or like you do environmental damage. They were all, to me, always so good. And I get that the popular opinion is number 2 was the best, number 3 was number 4 was but I liked them all. I was so happy to be able to get a hold of and play all of them.
Okay.
I kept doing that all the way up until they did the last and final game.
All the way in the PS3 years, which we'll get to. We're gonna talk about all the PlayStations in chronological
Ooh,
order.
oh.
All right, Emily. What was your favorite PlayStation game then, and then years later?
Oh, is it bad that it's the same game?
What?
Okay, because it's Fire the Dragon. That was my
Spyro?
favorite game at the
Yeah.
time that I was a kid, and it's still my favorite today.
Oh, all right, yeah. No, that's a classic for a lot of reasons. I personally like Spy. Hey, we got a sub. Thank you. Thank you, Cartbell.
Thank you.
I understood the message. It's like you're not streaming today. I see you. I'm pinging your
Yep.
Discord. What's up, Cartbell? We're just talking 30 years of PlayStation. I liked Spyro 1, but I preferred 2. 2 was my favorite Spyro.
Yeah.
2 and then 3. So
Spyro 2 was the better one. If I had to choose between the three, it would
Oh.
be Spyro 2.
So back then it was either so for me back then it was either Crash Bandicoot 2 or Crash Team Racing. I played the
Oh,
living
that's an honorable
shit.
mention. Is Crash Team
Yeah,
Racing.
but like as an adult, especially I went to capture a bunch of PS1 footage for a video Anthony and I were doing, and yo dog, Metal Gear Solid still holds up.
I
Metal
was
Gear
gonna say
Solid is
for my
Still good.
current for
Oh,
my
yeah.
current I've experienced a lot of PlayStation 1 games since Final Fantasy 7, the old Armored Core games,
Mhm.
a few others, but Metal Gear Solid 1, man, that's just a solid all-in-one great video game.
it's just like it holds up. The controls
It
are a little
holds up. It's
wonky,
wild.
but like
Sorry,
it,
guys.
yeah, if you like play it in a vacuum, like man, is it woo. Oh, just holy shit! It's hard to go back after you've played the newer ones though, because you don't have the dive, you don't have the first person aim, but man,
No.
like just I was doing that like entry section where on the helipad, and then like up until the DARPA chief for footage, and I was just like, this game is sick. This game is
Yep.
so sick.
Still very, very good.
Yeah, and I wasn't even upscaling it in the emulator either because we wanted to catch native footage. So we were like, even at like 240p on my computer monitor, I'm like, Metal Gear Solid 1 is dope.
They do it. It's good. It's so good.
So yeah, and it was a massive hit. The PS1 was completely dominated the generation it was in. It tripled the N64 sales. You know, like it, and I feel the PlayStation is kind of when video games started to grow up for a lot of people. Because, like, Sega and Nintendo would occasionally get a mature game with mature themes, you know, Final Fantasy, stuff like that. But then for, like, PS1, you know, it's when Metal Gear Solid happened and they're talking about, you know, geopolitical shit. Or, you know, you have Resident Evil with, like, blood and zombies. And, like, it's when kind of games started to grow up with their audience a little bit, I feel.
They definitely got a little bit more mature in that era. Because like
Yes.
before then, I mean, sure we had Sega Genesis with Mortal Kombat,
Yeah,
but being able to do more with the camera work, more with the polygons.
yeah,
That
the 3D was huge for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, but like
Trying to think of like an equivalent to like what Silent Hill was doing, like Clock Tower. I don't.
you know, like you know, even Twisted Metal, that was definitely like M rated for sure.
That was a
oh
game
no, it's
for the
just spaghetti
time.
coming out of people. Just spaghetti.
Yeah.
Just red spaghetti.
That was a game that was made to be released during the WWF Attitude Era.
Oh.
Yeah, like
Right.
Yeah, it was.
yeah, but like Tenchu, that's another M rated one, and just like you know,
Mhm.
you just had kind of more stuff that was becoming more mature and more adult or teenage, or at least teenage oriented. Like, yeah, some of that adult shit was a little juvenile, but it was still like it was starting to become
the
viable.
trajectory the trajectory of video games was really decided by the fact that they switched to 3D at the same time as like America was going through this like we're not your dad's thing, and like it's just like intense violence. Like there was violence already in a lot of video games, but like they weren't doing pixel intestines, on your Super Nintendo.
um,
Uh
yeah.
yeah.
So,
Mm,
comment in the chat. Getting a PS1 for Christmas changed my life. That's when my love for gaming began.
wow.
Um, for me, it kind of started with my N64 and like the arcade more than the PS1. Like I said, ironically enough, with that statement, Aaron, the PS1 was like my dad's thing. Like that was my dad's
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
Funnily
It
enough,
was again. This goes back to what we were talking about. It was the grown-up console.
yeah,
Everyone was kids
exactly.
were playing the N64, and then the
Like,
older kids and the adults were like, "All right, PlayStation."
yeah,
Yeah.
like I want to play
Like,
Zelda in Pokemon Stadium.
yeah, if we
Yeah.
actually talk about like what actually got us into gaming, as far as me, like it's hard to say if I really loved it because I was like when I was 8, I don't know how old I was, but I was playing Mortal Kombat and Looney Tunes with my no, the other one. Animaniacs? No. The one with the blue bunny.
I think that was
One with the
Tiny
blue bunny.
Toons. Tiny Toons.
Tiny
Tiny
Toons,
Toons.
that's it.
I was gonna
Yeah,
say
Tiny
that sounds like
Toons
Tiny
and
Toon
Sonic.
Adventures.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
Yeah.
Animaniacs
I
adjacent.
like
yeah.
I love playing that and I have fond memories of doing that with my mom. But my very first console to myself was a Nintendo 64, and it was
That was
playing GoldenEye. It was playing pod racing, Turok.
yeah.
That's what I want to say. Also got me into gaming.
For me,
Mm,
what got me to enjoy video games for the first time was playing Mortal Kombat at the Gold and Silver. Um, you know, when they had arcade machines there with my dad. My first console that I owned though was an N64. So yeah. Anyway, that's PS1. Let's get on to PS2. Um, I remember the year PS2 came out, how we got one a little bit after launch is trading in our PS1 and our Dreamcast and all of our Dreamcast games, along with some of my Christmas money, to get a PS2 with, I think it was, like, I think we just had to get the PS2. Like, we didn't have money for games.
oh
we,
damn.
we, we, we just got the PS2 and played PS1 games. It was a DVD player too, and my mom loved renting movies, and I loved renting movies, which that was the Trojan horse of the PS2 was, hey, it's
Right.
also a DVD player. You play DVDs.
A cheap DVD player.
Yes, because remember at the time DVD players were like $300 to $500 on their own, but this is a PlayStation. It's a PlayStation and DVD player.
Yep.
So weird to think back on.
Yeah,
Huge.
absolutely. Like nowadays they're just like ripping disk drives out of consoles, you know. And back then it was like, hey man, if you want a affordable DVD player, this is the way to do it.
I
Yeah,
mean,
like,
hell,
This
you
plays
could
all
just
your old
take your
games
old
and DVDs.
what?
old DVRs and just take the hard drive out now, and then that's a brand new hard drive you can use.
Uh,
Yeah.
um,
Wow.
um, but but yeah, man. So it's like. So yeah, like the PS2 kind of like is when consoles became real multimedia devices. Like you
Hmm.
know that's when you started like, oh, it's a movie player as well, and I look at the PS2 and I love the console. I think it has you know it basically is a victory lap for the PS1 beating its competition so badly that Sega went out of business, not out of business, but out of the console business, and then Microsoft's a newcomer and Nintendo it just made some mistakes. So just every developer was just like, oh well, we'll make our game for PS2 because that's where the people are.
Right.
Mhm.
Well, Microsoft made their big mistake with fucking them over with the PlayStation 1.
No, that was Nintendo.
Yeah, isn't that what I said?
No, you said
Said
Microsoft.
Microsoft.
Oh, right. Sorry, my bad. But no, that collaboration, had that actually went through, I mean, we would have never gotten the PlayStation,
No, well,
which is crazy to think about.
and to be fair, Sony was also trying to get one over on Nintendo at the time because the what the contract said is the rights to all games that came out on the CD based system belonged to Sony. So it's just like and Nintendo's like, yeah, this deal sucks. We need to find someone else, and they decided to go partner with Panasonic. I think they should have told Sony that instead of just being like, yeah, we're good. Yeah, we're good. And then
Right.
embarrassing the shit out of them at CES. Because for those of you who don't know this story, what happened is Sony and Nintendo were working on a CD-based add-on to the Super Nintendo. And then they were just working on a CD-based system. And then, Nintendo reads the rights of the contract, and the contract is really bad against Nintendo. Basically any game that comes out on the Nintendo PlayStation, Sony has the rights to, and Sony gets the bulk of the like most of the royalties for it. So they're like, this is a terrible contract. We shouldn't do this. So they go to Panasonic and are like, hey, we're gonna start working with you on a CD space system. Problem is, they don't tell Sony. So Sony goes out at CES that year, I think it was in like 92, saying, hey, we're doing a CD add-on Super Nintendo. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be all in one unit. And then the next day, Nintendo comes out and is like, we're partnering with... No, it was Philips. It wasn't Panasonic. Panasonic made something else. Excuse me. They partner with Philips. Like, I don't know what they're talking about. We're partnering with Philips, and we're making this thing called the CDI. I don't know what you're talking about. And what happens at that point, for those of you who don't know the history of this, is Sony wants to just like get out of the games business, just like fuck this, I'm done. This was horrible and embarrassing for us. And then Ken Kutaragi, the head engineer behind the PlayStation, goes to Noria Olga, who is the president of Sony at the time, and says, "Look, no, we can make a whole console out of this. We can, we can salvage this. We can do something great with this." And Noria Olga is just so pissed off from being embarrassed, he greenlights the project. Right, he greenlights the PlayStation project, but he can't do it in Sony internally because of the fact that most people think within Sony, the main bulk of Sony thinks this thing is going to be a failure and an expensive failure at that. So what ends up happening is they go and they dump it off on Sony Music, so it can be kind of hidden, and also because Sony Music knows how to negotiate deals with studios and artists and things of that nature, and they're also the ones who made some basic PC games at the time. So yeah,
The spiteful console.
Yes, and then on top of that,
Well,
for those of you that didn't know, the Super Nintendo sound chip was actually made by Sony. Like the regular, because that's how they started to get in contact with each other is through that. So, all right, now that we have our PlayStation history lesson down, I guess.
PlayStation history lesson of the day.
Yes, I can, dude. If you want to hear PlayStation,
That's why we're doing this show. I'm here
You
for
could
this.
teach a
podcast.
full
Go.
semester on PlayStation history.
I honestly
love
probably
to go to
could.
that class.
Yeah, I probably could, in all honesty. So yeah, like, and that choice to completely be like, yo, dog, we're gonna exit this contract without telling them and let them embarrass themselves. Yeah, that bit Nintendo in the ass for 2 generations straight. Now they're back on top. They're the best-selling console, and everyone loves the Switch, and it is what it is. Yeah, like.
I wouldn't say it.
Oh, someone's a little
well,
salty.
I mean, like, so, like, it just sits here now. It's a decoration. It's a nice decoration.
Fair enough. It's also the last year of its life, so you know,
Right.
I got
Yeah.
I got many quality hours out of the Switch, but we'll go to that at another point. So yeah, PS2, yeah, and it kind of just dominated by being the default console because GameCube made the choice to go with mini disc and continue advertising to families mostly. And even when they did get mature
Mm-hmm.
games, they didn't do well, other than Resident Evil. And then Microsoft was new, and Sega was out of the industry at that point for consoles. So it was kind of the default console, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
in the case of reviews, all review copies got sent out on PS2 because of that, for the most part. And yeah, like it, you know, and because of that, it has an absurd library. You know, we have ranking the PS2 on the channel. When I have time, I go and play PS2 games and rank them. And even just getting from our community and adjacent communities people's favorite PS2 games, well over 200 games. 200 different
Yep.
games. It was fucking crazy. Crazy.
Kind of hard not to.
Anyway, so but yeah, I mean yeah, like so it ended up being the default console at the time, and you know it shows. And I think almost everyone I know at one point owned a PS2. You know,
You would think.
like it is very hard to find people in our age group or older that do not own a goddamn PS2. Like it is intense how much market penetration it has, and they actually revealed the final sales total for it during this anniversary event they're doing.
Okay.
It is the best selling console ever, like ever, not just this generation, but ever,
Right.
at 160 million units.
What's next? What's next up on the list?
I want to say it's Switch at 140 something.
Oof.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Short.
Like the let me pull up the best selling console list here. Yeah, it's PS2 at 160, and then Switch at 146, and then Game Boy.
Oof.
Well, not Game Boy. I'm not counting handhelds. Then PS4, and then PS1, Wii, PS2. So, or sorry, PS3.
Right.
So if you include handhelds, it goes PS2, DS, Switch, Game Boy, PS4, PS1, Wii, PS3.
Hmm.
So it's yeah.
Yeah. An absurd library.
Yeah, like so you know, what is everybody's favorite PS2 game, I guess, then and now?
Let's see. I played a
This
lot
is
of games on
hard.
PS2.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Like sorry, sorry Lucy, what'd you say?
I think I can manage this one pretty easily. So unfortunately back then I didn't really know much about like gaming as much as I do now, and I'm still learning. Because I
Yeah.
like look back and I'm like, oh wow, I was an idiot. Because you could go to rental stores and get the games constantly,
Yep.
and so I'm going to admit that the reason I didn't play so many games back then is because I somehow did not register that difficulty was tied to the fancier looking badges at the beginning of the game. So I always picked the fancy one and just went into the hardest difficulty of the game. So it kept me away from a lot of games. That was no one told me anything. I didn't really have like I pretty much just stayed home and played video games after school. That's all I did.
That's what a lot of us
Um,
did. That's why we're here. That's why we're doing this show.
yeah. So that
Em, could
little
you
bit of the
ban that
ESD
chat bot? in the chat. Thank you.
Can do.
Thank you.
How dare they?
Yep.
But
No.
so
Yeah.
that said, God of War. God of War is and always will be my favorite PlayStation 2 game.
That
Especially number 2, which that would have been amazing had they just held off just a little bit and put that on the PlayStation 3.
yeah,
But it was so good on the PlayStation 2 as well.
And we'll go into why that would not have been a PS3. Yeah, we'll go into why that wouldn't have been a PS3 game in a little bit. There's a lot of reasons why that happened.
Okay. I know a little bit of it, but I just feel like with what they did with it on the PlayStation 2, it would have been great to see what they could have done. Because they did eventually add it to the PlayStation 3.
They did, but it was a remaster.
As a collection.
Yeah.
Right.
Heartbill says, I'm deciding between Final Fantasy X or Snake Eater. I love both those
Ooh,
games. They're
Snake
both so
Eater was
good.
good. I'm looking forward to the new Snake Eater just to try it.
I'm curious to see what
chance to actually play through.
Yeah. So anyway, continue what you were saying, Lucy.
Yeah. Aside from God of War, because my favorite memory of God of War was when it was during that age where you could walk into stores and play the console game while your parents are shopping.
Yeah.
So Best Buy visits were me playing whatever they had on display, and that was around the time I was reading Percy Jackson novels. I was trying to get it. I
Nice.
loved Greek
Nice.
mythology and just being able to play it. But very close to that would be the GTA games. Absolutely loved them. They were so much fun, even though I never once played the missions. Never once played the missions until I was in high school. I did not beat GTA San Andreas until I was in high school.
All right.
And then one little weird game that I absolutely loved was the Playboy Mansion video game. It was a Sims like where you just built the mansion all the way up. My mom was very proud that she got it for me.
Oh, this says a whole lot about the upbringing here.
I was allowed to play just about anything I wanted, but at the beginning, I had to prove that like I wasn't going to go to the schoolyard and try to pull off like a WWE move or a Mortal Kombat move or use the language from it.
Yeah, I think the game for me that was the tipping point was what was it? Halo. Halo was like M rated. My parents were like, "Okay, we're gonna get you this, but it's also kind of our field test to see if you're a murderer." So.
Oh my god.
See, I didn't have that. I just had like, all right, you fucked this up once, and you're not playing anything like this until you're in high school.
Well, yeah, similar situation, and yeah. So, all right. So God of War 1 and 2. All right. What about you, Aaron? Do you have yours? Because I can definitely think of mine if no one else has theirs.
So I have my all-time favorite. I'll get to that in a second. But just to talk about a lot of the games I enjoyed during that time, the PlayStation I got to a little late. Xbox was like my first console, like for me, and so I was deep in Xbox for a little while.
Yeah, I will say at the time I was mostly GameCube and Xbox. I played PS2 and we had a PS2, but it was once again not my primary system. So
right,
yeah.
And which says a lot that like at the end of the generation, I had way more PS2 games than Xbox games, despite getting to it years late, because there's just so many games on it. I played a bunch of games on there. To get to them all would take forever. The one I want to draw attention to was I did not play them all. In fact, I only played a couple. But a big thing about PlayStation at that time were their Jack and Daxters, their Ratchet and Clanks, their Sly Coopers.
All those were fucking great. I loved all of them.
Yeah,
Top Gear
I particularly
Arsenal is
was
my favorite.
okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
that one was a good one.
I was a Sly 2 kid. I could play Sly 2 from beginning to end over and over. Um, big fan of Sly 2, and then second was Jack 3. Played a lot of
Mm.
Jack 3.
I,
So
I I loved all of them. I will say Ratchet and Clank was kind of the neglected one for me. Like I played it, but it was always on rental because we had that.
which is funny because it's the only one that survived.
Yeah, we had that one. Like we would do the weekly rental thing. My mom and I, like, she'd always rent a movie, I'd rent a
Yep.
game, and Ratchet and Clank was always a rental game. But like when I asked for games to buy, it was always Jack and Daxter or Sly. so
Yeah. Yeah.
um
Yep.
so a
Uh,
game. Sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
no. I was going to continue with my thing. If you got something you need to
No,
get to.
no, go no. Finish your thing because mine's.
Okay.
I figured out what game I'd
Um.
love to talk about for the time.
Okay. Yeah, and then just to, because Lucy talked about it, so I just want to expand on it on my end. Was I have like 4 stages of gaming. There's like child gamer. I'm just like playing video games. Then there's just like kid who really loves video games. Which was during this generation, PS2,
Mhm.
Xbox really got you in, but you don't know what you're doing. Like I'm going to Hollywood Video, you just pick out the art that looked coolest, and that's the one you're playing. I'm not looking at GameSpot. I'm not looking at reviews
Mhm.
or anything. Just like, all right, cool. And then next generation was gamer derogatory, which went for about a decade plus. And then there's post tired gamer, which is what I'm currently in. But this PS2 era was that like beginning era of like, man, video games are the coolest thing. I'm going to make this a part of who I am. And been all downhill ever since. But it's,
It's how you ended up on this
so
show.
it really is. It's the reason we are here.
Yep.
So
Well,
but yeah, so lots of games I enjoyed at the time, but obviously my number one still has to be Shadow of the Colossus. That was like just a transcendent experience. That video games could be this as early as the PS2 era was wild.
I remember something about Shadow of the Colossus was interesting, and it's my dad didn't really enjoy those kind of like high fantasy games. Like when I'd play like Final Fantasy X or something, he'd kind of tune out. But like
Sure.
I remember like playing Shadow of the Colossus and doing the bird boss, and him walking by my room and seeing it and standing in the doorway the entire time, watching it.
The old dad move.
Yeah, like it was real good. It was real good. So man, no, like just the system was so good for that, and it like at the time my favorite game was probably Dragon Ball Budokai 3. Like I unlocked every
Oh
character,
man.
I did everything, I
Yep.
did, dude. Like I went ham on Budokai 3.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, like Budokai 3 is
Loved
where
all
I.
those games, but 3 was that
So
perfect
yeah,
like crescendo.
3 was actually a good fighting game. Like that's where the difference happens. Is like 3 had the counters, the teleport counters. It had like some more combos. It was a little more advanced. It's like 3 is when it became like a real like polished thing, and they really tuned up those cel shaded graphics. And like yeah, at the time, and it's hard to choose a game for the time because Metal Gear Solid 3 kind of showed me, like
Yep.
Metal Gear Solid 3 and Final Fantasy X both kind of showed me this is where video game storytelling can go. And like you know, and then like I played a lot of God of
Also,
War,
how
which
good
was
video games can look.
yeah, exactly. Like
Wild.
um you know, yeah, so as for my favorite now, and it's for sure, and it's my favorite game ever. It's easily top 2, right up there with World of Warcraft. Is Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. That game
Yep.
is perfect. It is perfect. It is so goddamn good, especially once
All right,
they.
Homelander.
Hey, I was
It,
about to say, oh my god.
um,
Even down to the last minute detail. Perfect.
so the thing about Metal Gear Solid 3, like they did have to release a new version when Metal Gear Online which Metal Gear Online was dope. And then on top of Metal Gear Online being sick, it also fixed the one issue that Metal Gear Solid 3 had, which was the camera was a little wonky. So yeah, like once those things were fixed in this re-release, like dude, that is a like just amazing, perfect goddamn game. So yeah, and what about you? Favorite PS2 game of the time and now?
Fuck. Um. Uh. So at the time, it probably would be Kingdom Hearts 2.
That's another good one.
How
Yep.
did I forget about Kingdom Hearts?
Good
God,
lord.
mother.
We have a friend who has an entire back piece for Kingdom Hearts.
That sounds like it
Um.
feels so good.
People talk about the PlayStation loading screen sound, like taking them back, and I think that's a very strong. But I think what is just as strong is the
Is
Kingdom
the
Hearts
Kingdom Hearts
soundtrack,
2.
taking that
But Kingdom Hearts 2
taking me back right
specifically,
then.
because that's just
I mean,
that was
yeah,
good shit.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, that soundtrack just slaps.
So hard every time.
Oh,
I will say I will say that like every time I hear one of those two opening tracks, Simple and Clean, or God, I'm forgetting the one from Kingdom Hearts 2. Like it is like poor memory unlocked levels of.
yeah.
And,
Oh my god.
well, the funniest story I have related to that was actually a recent one. Is but my girlfriend's never played Kingdom Hearts, and I forget if she owned a PS2 or not. I know her brother had a GameCube for sure, and like Simple and Clean came on, and I'm like on a playlist, and I'm just like, oh hey, from Kingdom Hearts, and she's like, this is from Kingdom Hearts. Why do people like this?
Whoa,
Damn.
that's bad.
She roasted that song. It's like a
I mean, by itself, I guess. I don't know.
yeah, well, yeah, she does not have the context of the game or the intro,
Right.
so she's just hearing the song. Which, yeah, when you just hear the song, it just sounds like really just strange pop music, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like something that kids would be into,
Yeah.
for sure.
huh.
But damn.
It was amazing when you think about like different perspectives.
Well, yeah, because like she's been like outside of some brief stints in like PS3 and PS4, she has been a PC gamer most of her life. I mean, like the entire time.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's so yeah, um like in our PS3 library she has 3 games.
Yep. I mean, in
Um
that case, I don't blame her too much, but
like so she does really like a PS2 game though. It's this JRPG called Okage.
Okage.
Okage Shadow King. It was a PS2 RPG made by Sony Interactive and Zennerworks, and it came out in March of 2001.
Wow.
Yep. She really was into it, and it's actually a big part of why I actually subscribed to PlayStation Plus Premium because she wanted to play it again, and it was on the service.
Oh, cool.
So I was like, oh, all right, I can upgrade my subscription to the fancy one. Why not?
Yeah. Nice.
All right. So, your favorite then was Kingdom Hearts 2. What is your favorite now?
Sly Cooper.
Sly Cooper? Which one?
Oh gosh. Probably either 1 or 2. I have to play the second one again just to confirm, but
Uh,
I know
For
those 2 for sure.
for me, like going back and playing them when they came out on PS3 and more recently, I definitely really like um I definitely really like 1, but it definitely feels more dated than 2 or 3. Um Also, we got a couple comments in the chat. Morning party people, and then Ninja Bat. It looks like a ninja holding. Oh, it's a ninja on a
Morning.
door
Oh
frame.
no.
Sorry, it looked like a ninja
Might
holding
be
a bat.
bamboo stick.
Yeah, no, I zoomed in on it. It's a ninja peeking around a corner. Yeah, okay, there you
In
go.
any case, good morning, everybody.
Morning, all.
Morning.
By the way, forgot to mention this as long as we're
Morning.
doing a quick promotion run here. Hey, if you subscribe, you can use our emotes from here in our Discord now. They carry right over.
That's right. Yeah.
So,
Seriously?
Yep.
Yeah.
So use those
Not
Twitch
that one
primes,
looks
everybody.
right.
Thank you.
Please.
So
We should make more emotes.
we should talk to Bremen
We
about
need
that.
all the emotes.
We'll talk to
All the
Bram.
emotes.
Animated emotes, yeah.
Oh God.
A
All right.
hammer emote.
Yeah, just in the meantime, we just have M use the F on a tombstone.
F's in the chat, baby.
So anyway, yeah. So that's the PS2, man. Like that's
Yeah.
arguably the best.
Before we leave the PlayStation 2, we should admit we should also talk about how that had probably the best era of superhero games. Some of them bad, but a lot of them were.
I was gonna
great
say,
on the PlayStation
Spider-Man.
2.
I actually think that actually goes to the next two generations. I think the Arkham games, Infamous.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
That's. But it was.
I was gonna say outside of Spider-Man.
Hulk, Ultimate
Hulk, yeah.
Alliance.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I ever had Ultimate
that-
Alliance. X-Men Legends, that was a good one.
Ooh, X-Men. That one was good.
The thing
Movies,
is
not
that
so much.
the thing is though is like I'm not super big on that style of RPG. So for me, it's like Marvel Ultimate Alliance and X-Men Legends are both good games. They're just not for me. So if you were to ask me, what would you rather play? Ultimate Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2, Hulk, and the Legends / Alliance games, I'd be like, or Infamous and the Batman Arkham games, I'd be like, I'd much rather play the Infamous and Batman Arkham games.
You.
So.
All right, maybe I'll rephrase it. It was the start of the greatest superhero.
Yeah, like
We'll take that answer.
it's definitely when licensed games were starting. Like you still got shitty licensed games, but it was kind of the start of the area
Spider-Man
of
3 was horrible.
Yes. But like it was also the start of the era of we were finally getting good licensed games. Like really good licensed games. You know, Budokai 3 is a licensed game. Hulk Ultimate Destruction, all those games we just talked about. Like it's when you started to see that turn happen in a meaningful way. Yeah. Versus you play Superman 64 or Bad Boys on the PS2.
Yeah.
I did not need that for my day. You have to bring Superman up again.
So
someday the weather in Metropolis will clear up.
Someday.
Some days you'll just not have to fly through so many fucking hoops.
Yeah.
So yeah, we that's PS2. Now, before the PS2 came out, they put out another thing called the PSP.
Right.
I loved me some PSP. This segment I have a feel is going to be shorter. I remember my first memory of a PSP is I had to choose between it and a DS, and I went with a DS, which for me is one of the few times I've ever made a mistake in picking a console. Huge mistake. I ended up loving the PSP way more when I eventually got one. And yeah, so I think that like, but I remember seeing a PSP, like Quinn got a PSP launch week, and I remember like holding that and playing with it and thinking this was the most futuristic goddamn device I've ever seen in my entire life. Like that thing was so like because it had all the functionality of something like the iPod, right? like music,
Mm-hmm.
but you could watch movies, and like yes, now it seems like that's not a big screen, but back then a 4.3-inch screen on a handheld that was backlit was huge and gorgeous.
Yeah.
Um, and it was playing like not quite PS2 level games for the quality, but like close, like at least Dreamcast. Like you were playing like Luminous, you were playing like you were playing Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops, and these full 3D experiences that actually looked good. You know,
I just want to make a minor point. Like, when we were playing, Game Boy, like it was like backlit was a huge thing, and here's PSP with just a full on screen. Here we go.
yeah, like
This is just a portable goddamn. It's not a portable console, but like at the time, closest thing you had.
yeah, like this is not like. You have to remember, we're coming from Game Boy Advance, which half of the people who owned a Game Boy Advance had the one I had, which didn't have the backlit screen.
Right.
You get maybe 2 3D games ever, and they just kind of look like Super Nintendo Mode 7, to this thing, which is a full 3D ass, almost PS2 quality game on the go with a backlit screen. It was nuts.
Wild.
It was nuts, and it could also play movies, and it could also do all this other stuff. Like it was a magical time. Like it was a mind blowing system. I think that just the problem for it was the DS ended up getting a lot of games that the general public loved. Your Nintendogs, your Pokemon, your Mario Kart, your Animal Crossing. And the DS was a lot cheaper. The DS was $130, and it went down to like $80 eventually. Versus the PSP never dropped below 150, and at the very end it was 150. Most of its life it was $200 to $250, plus the cost of at launch, if you want a decent memory card, you were going to be paying $100. And I think 3 years into its life, I got a 4 gig memory card for like $25. Which that wasn't bad, and that was good enough to hold all my music at the time. So
Right.
but yeah, like it was. No, so
Was this Napster music?
this was LimeWire music.
Oh,
This was and then when LimeWire went down at the very end of the PSP's life, it was Pirate Bay music.
never heard of it. I've never used anything.
Yeah, no.
Wouldn't
Don't know
know.
what it is. Don't know what I'm talking about. What? Hallucination. Yeah.
Yep.
We
We were just on vacation.
Yep.
Nothing happened.
Oh.
Exactly.
So.
All right.
Yeah. So like, yeah, my history with the PSP though, personally, was I got to see Quinn's at launch. I used it with him on trips on occasionally when he wasn't, but I really didn't get my own until a year and a half later. I got a bunch of birthday money for my 17th birthday, and they just put out the PSP Slim, and it came with Daxter, some Family Guy collection, and like 2 gigs of memory, or like gig of memory, and that was enough to because because my MP3 player broke, and I needed a new MP3 player anyway, and because I had a Creative Zen Nano that was like this big, and like the shell broke off one half of it, so I was like taping like electrical tape around it to keep it alive a little longer, and then the other shell broke off, so now I just have a battery and a board and a tiny screen that I'm like holding together with more tape. And I was like, these are $100 by themselves. I should just spend $200 and get a PSP and use a PSP as my MP3
Right.
player. And that
Yep.
thing ended up being a conversation piece, because like people would like see me on the bus listening to music with him. It's like, what is that? And it was just like, it's a PSP. It's a portable PlayStation. Plays MP3s though.
Yeah.
It's like an iPod but better. So yeah, and the funny thing about that though is I was also a huge God of War fan, Lucy, and they announced like a couple months after I bought it, hey, in like March we're putting out a red PSP with God of War and Superbad, a movie I loved at the time, and I was like, "Damn it, you sons of bitches!" Because
Had that one.
yeah, red is my
Yeah.
favorite color. God of War was a game I was super excited for, and I liked Superbad's movie, so it was like it seemed like a perfect path for me, but I bought in too early. But I love that PSP. I played that silver PSP into the ground. Yeah, I still have it. It's just its battery connector doesn't charge anymore. So
Mm.
and then real interesting story is when I was at the DMV, I dropped it when I was like 20, and a little bit of the disk drive like chipped off the plastic on it, and
Yeesh.
it it wouldn't register the disk drive as shut, so UMDs wouldn't boot up. So what I did is I took the tiniest piece of tin foil and replaced the plastic with it, and I used that. I used that until I got a PSP Go. So yeah,
Wild.
so yeah. What about you, Lucy? What's your PSP story?
God of War, GTA, and Battlefront.
Ooh,
Do
That
yeah.
you
last Battlefront, though, will always have a special place in my memories because that was the first Battlefront to go from ground combat to sky combat to space combat. It was
so
it was a fairly awesome storyline as well. I enjoyed the cloning of a Jedi, and then you finding out you're a Jedi, but you were just a trooper. It was I absolutely love that game.
So, I guess do you have any stories of getting your PSP or your introduction to the PSP?
Which one?
I guess your first
That,
one, because yeah, like, because my story
I think it
was
was a birthday present.
okay. Do you all right? Hey,
Yeah.
that's a great. Mine was technically a birthday present because I just burned all my birthday money on it. You know, I played a whole lot of
Yeah,
Daxter and Madden. I got like a 2-year-old Madden for $5, and it blew my mind because I was like, holy shit, I'm playing the full PS2 version of Madden on the go. The only bad part
that was
was
fun too.
it was, and also its load times were horrendously bad.
Oh my god. But that was the last time I ever actually owned a Madden game. That was the last time I actually went out on my own. Just these, oh, I want to get this game. Wait, you never like everyone was like, oh, you never play sports. You know, it's like I used to.
um,
I used to break Madden all the time with certain plays that I could just like constantly keep the ball.
oh, there's still stuff in Madden you can do that's totally busted. So, um, anyway, all right. Aaron? What about you? I found your PSP story to be kind of interesting because you came. Quick comment in the chat. Hello everybody. We'll get to your comments
Hey.
later.
Um, well, I
We
don't have
love
I
you.
don't have very much with the PSP. It was the PSP Go. I remember seeing it was like this all digital uh portable console with the little slide thing. I was like, this looks very interesting, and I got it, and I messed around with like Patapon and Peace Walker, and that was kind of it. Um, I didn't like moving around in the 3D space with the four directions
And that analog
myself. I
nub,
just yeah
the nub,
I did yeah I didn't
the analog nub.
I did not gel with the PSP very well. I stuck around with like the Game Boy Advance SP for a long time until eventually getting a DS, and that was just a Pokemon machine basically. So um, that was the past Pokemon. I'm not much of a portable person, so I missed out on the PSP pretty much.
All right. Em, did you have any experiences with the PSP?
They've
Yeah.
been playing Secret Agent Clank and Daxter on my brother's PSP.
Okay.
Yep.
I love the PSP, man. It's one of my favorite. Like I when Retro Gamer did a whole issue on the PSP, I like bought that issue Like I was just like, dude, I gotta get this thing, and it was great. There's a bunch of really cool stories about that. No, all right, well, this should be quick then. What is everybody's favorite PSP game then and now?
Uh,
Baxter. Then
Baxter?
and now.
Yeah, that's a great game. It's on
It still
PlayStation.
holds up.
Yeah, it's on PlayStation Premium now also.
it was I didn't have very much experience with it, but I remember getting Peace Walk and be like, "This is cool." They crammed this onto a small portable console.
It was really cool because that game was also cool because if it pinged the Wi-Fi connections that you drove by, you would get a bunch of free soldiers. So like I would like
Ooh.
sit around with my backpack with a PSP in it in college and just be getting free soldiers for my squad. It was dope.
That's fun. Yeah.
Um, yeah. What about you, Lucy? PSP then and now.
Back then it was definitely God of War. But today it's gonna be that uh, it's gonna be the San Andreas story games because it
Oh,
is
when
so
they
hard to get a hold of those, and I actually really enjoyed those stories.
yeah
That's when
that
I
the
started getting into the secret special weapons and vehicles you could get from certain enemies if you stole their vehicles.
Vice City and GTA 3 pseudo ports because they had different stories but were in the same city. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I
Uh,
mean, they all continued into the baseline game because
yeah,
uh, Vice City Stories was actually a prequel to Vice City,
and then
and I think it
Liberty
was the
City Stories
opposite.
was a oh no, Liberty City Stories was after. You're right. You're right.
Yeah, it was after,
Yeah.
but it also ties into both of them tie into San Andreas as well.
Yeah. That part I actually didn't know. I played
Yeah,
those games.
your girlfriend in San Andreas or in Liberty City Stories shows up with Clyde
Oh, in
from.
San Andreas.
Yeah.
But San Andreas takes place before Liberty City Stories, so okay, that makes
Oh, yeah,
sense.
that's right. So that might.
Yeah, so the timeline would be Vice City Stories, Vice City, San Andreas, 3 Liberty City Stories, I believe. Don't count. Okay, so it's the GTA games though.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Back
It was
then
nice being able to play them on the go.
it was, dude. That was wild. You were playing full ass Grand Theft Auto on the go.
Mhm.
Yeah, so as for me, I think the at the time it definitely would have been Peace Walker and Portable Ops. Like playing real ass Metal Gear Solid games on the go and the extra portable functions of like catching soldiers and the weird stuff Kojima did with the Wi-Fi was awesome. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. As for the other side of that, though, currently today it's probably Luminous. I have played more
Sure.
Luminous than any other PSP game. It is crazy. It is absolutely insane how much Luminous I have played.
Mhm.
Um, and I have a Vita story when we get to that one about the Luminous on the Vita, how much I played it. Comment in the chat. I kind of hated the PSP for the simple fact that every time it read a disc, it sounded like a cat coughing up a hairball. Um, yeah, we'll talk about the mistakes of the PSP in a second. And then Cartbill's favorite game is Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core. That is probably the best Final Fantasy, if you include spin-offs, released after 10 and before 16. It's better than 12. It's better than 13. It's better than 15. It's better than like all the other spin-offs released in that time frame. It's yeah. Yeah, the UMD disc thing was kind of a double-edged sword. Dwarf Wolf Dad says Crisis Core as well. Because the UMD allowed, up to almost 2 gigs of storage, which you couldn't do on a cartridge at the time because it would have been insanely expensive to do that on a tiny cartridge at the time. So they had to do UMDs, and they had to add a little protective shell around it so you could actually carry it with you portably. But the problem with it is it drained battery real hard. Like the PSP's battery life was like 6 to 8 hours, which nowadays I realize for a portable console that sounds great. But back then it was kind of appalling because the DS was hitting like 15 and the Game Boy like 20, 30.
Right.
So, yeah, and then they tried to sell UMD movies because they thought it was going to be like the next DVD, but nobody wanted to pay $20 to buy a movie a second time just to watch it on the bus on a 4.5 inch screen. So,
So, talking about the UMDs, did any of you replace your UMD cases with the colored ones?
no, never once. Not once.
Yeah, I had a couple of them where the little case would break or something like that. So I'd have to get like a replacement one. And so I always got the like colored.
Yeah,
Huh.
that's cool. I remember I remember that the PSP in my case I do remember I had my Crisis Core shell broke, and then I just found a white one. Like I had a friend who was tired of a game that wasn't very good, and I was just like, "Can I have the outside shell?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure." Um, so yeah, I'm trying to think of, but yeah, well, something interesting about the PSP disk drive as well is it altered how they had to make games in some cases because they didn't want it to be reading off the disk as a lot because that would burn battery. What most developers would do is cram as much shit into one loading session as possible, and then you would play whatever it is you were going to play, and then the disk drive wouldn't be running during that. So like that's why you'll notice like a lot of PSP games will have like one really big long load and then a bunch of gameplay, and then the same thing would happen again. So yeah. Comment in the chat from Marble Skull. Hey, how are you doing? We're doing great. We're talking 30 years of PlayStation.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that was the PSP. Now we're on to the next. Sony's kind of first big whoops-a-doodle. Their first big kind of fuck up real hard. Yo, dog,
Yeah.
you remember PS3 and its insane E3 presentation?
I sure do.
Fucking giant enemy crabs that are somehow in realistic feudal Japan.
Uh-huh.
Totally makes sense.
It's Ridge Racer. Ridge Racer. Fucking.
It's
Oh god.
we have a podcast episode of us reliving that press conference.
Oh, dude.
God.
Did that video ever air? We should post that after this. We watch that.
Did we do the full Sony press conference one?
We recorded it. I don't know if we ever posted it, but we definitely recorded it.
We definitely didn't post it, but
Okay.
I'm just trying to remember if I remember sitting through that whole thing. Holy God.
I definitely think we did. But
okay, I'll take a look.
In 2005, Sony reveals the PS3 and does some trailers that were wildly unrealistic of what the system could actually do. Like, people still talk about that Killzone 2005 trailer as like, this isn't a game.
Ooh, yeah.
This isn't a real thing. And then the next year they have a more realistic presentation, and everyone is complaining about how hard this thing is to develop for. Valve and Gabe Newell come out and slam the PS3 for how hard it is to develop for.
Yep.
So yeah, Gabe Newell called PS3 quote a waste of everyone's time. So yeah.
I buy my Xanax from that guy.
Um, you know, he
Oh
says,
God.
yeah, because the PS3 used a very particular like computer architecture called Cell. So instead of having you know, one main processor or like a processor with cores like the 360 did or what modern computers have, it had a big processor and like 8 baby processors that you would hand individual tasks off to. Funnily enough, it almost functions kind of like a modern GPU is like kind of, not quite, but it's close. And then what it would do, so like you would be like, okay, you need to tell the processor to send the physics to this SPE, and this SPE is going to calculate the physics, and then this one is going to send the cell is going to send this to another SPE, and then so on and so forth. Um, yeah. So and it was wildly expensive as well because it was a new custom thing, along with having a Blu-ray drive. And all of this together made it so the PS3 had to launch at $600, and they were losing $400 on every unit sold.
Yep.
Yeah, they were losing they were
good
losing
business.
tons, and it caused it so a lot of multi-platform games on PS3 would run way worse. So like the Orange Box is a notable port. Orange Box ran fine on 360, played fine on 360. The PS3 version had audio bugs where audio would become crunchy. There'd be random frame drops down into the tens, tons of loading, tons of other issues. And Valve didn't even want to bother with it. They just handed it off to EA to do the port. They're like, "Yo, y'all want to make some money on this? There you go." And then, excuse me. So there was that, and then you had cases like Bayonetta where the PS3 version was getting full grades lower in reviews than the 360 version. And this story just repeats over and over and over again for a million different games at that time. Fear, like Call of Duty was considered being notable because it ran the same on on both consoles. Like it was considered like a big deal that, oh my god, Call of Duty runs the same on PS3. It's still 60 and didn't have these problems. So this architecture was just a mess, and the system was super hard to develop for, super expensive to develop for, super expensive to make, super expensive to buy, um, and Sony was just very cocky. They didn't consider the 360 to be competition, which we all know was false as hell now. If you want to make an argument for what is the best console ever, the 360 is like right up there for sure. And like, so Sony just they got punched in the teeth. Like, I remember in pre-release, what was it? Ken Kutaragi said people will work 2 jobs to buy a PS3.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. That's a
So
choice.
it's you would they thought that people would buy it at any price because of the success of the PS1 and the PS2. Ken Kutaragi said so yeah, like our goal for PlayStation 3 is for the consumers to think themselves, I will work more hours to buy one. We want people to feel they want it irrespective of anything else. And they launched it with one good game. Did y'all ever play Mag on PS3? I had like 3 to 4 360s getting the Red Ring of Death. I did play Mag. We'll get into that in a second.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I went through by the end of that generation. I went through I was finally safe on my 7th Xbox.
Yep.
But it didn't matter because at the time, like 06, 07, 08, the 360 had more games. It had better games. It ran better. The online was good versus the PS3 online, which it worked at least. It functioned. But like the 360, you had party chat, like, and remember, trophies weren't there at launch. Trophies were not at the launch of the PS3. They came two years into the PS3. In the middle of 2008, they put out a patch. Like some games never got trophies. Resistance 1 never got trophies. As an example, Ratchet and Clank, not a crack in time. The one before that, the first Ratchet and Clank on it never got trophies. Heavenly Sword never got trophies. So you kind of had this thing where just the first 2 years of that system were a fucking nightmare. Just a waking nightmare. And even when it got good games, nobody gave a shit because most people I knew at least bought a 360. I knew one dude who had a PS3 and a legion of people with 360s. And credit to Microsoft, they went out and they got it. Like they went out and they said, no, we're not going to roll over. We're going to do all these things that ended up kind of defining what a modern console is. Like they were the first to do achievements. They were the first to, you can see what your friends are doing and talk to your friends while playing other games. They were the first one to do all this integrated shit,
Yep. Huge.
So, like, Sony being behind the ball in almost every part of that, except for the multimedia stuff. Oh, yeah, they were the first one to get Netflix and the streaming apps on a box. Like, Sony was behind in all of this. So,
no way Xbox could fumble that bag.
Yeah, we'll get to the second half of this generation in a minute.
We'll get there. Yep.
Like, Sony is fucked. They are $200 more expensive. They have way smaller of a library. It's harder to develop for. You have they're screwed, and they're not gonna have big games out for at least a year. And people still bought it partially on the name of the brand of PlayStation, because I know PlayStation. I'm gonna stick to PlayStation. And then a few people wanted it as a Blu-ray player for sure, because it was, Blu-ray players being $1,000 at the time, getting one for $600 was still a deal. But, like I had friends ask me, like, should I buy a PS3? And I said no. No, absolutely not. Not until Metal Gear Solid 4 is out, and even then I'm not sure. And I think that during 06, 07, even 08, it was almost immediately, almost everyone was just buying a 360 instead. Like, that was the vibe that I had. And I got a PS3 in late 08 because it finally hit a good price. It was $400. And then I managed to find one on sale for $340 because it was the 40 gig model that was being discontinued in favor of the 80 gig. So, and I remember I bought Metal Gear 4, and it was the most mind-blowing fucking game I had ever played.
I remember specifically your tune on the PS3 really started to change after you played Metal Gear 4.
Yes, because I saw this is what you can do with this system if you master the technical nightmare that is the Cell. And around the same time, you started to see other developers do the same thing. You started to see Little Big Planet came out around then. That came out in late 08. You started seeing Resistance 2 with its huge set pieces and monsters the size of a city. That came out. And I went back and I played the first Uncharted, and it was like kind of clunky but cool. And Heavenly Sword, same thing. Like, it was like you saw what these exclusives would eventually be. It's just the goddamn box was too expensive, and Xbox was just putting out great shit all the time. So it was really hard for most people to see this. And if I was not a Metal Gear fan, I probably wouldn't. I probably would just be like, fuck it, I'm gonna keep playing Xbox.
And developers struggling with developing early on.
Yeah, when you have one of the biggest developers in the world saying, investing in the SP gives you no long-term benefit. There's nothing you're going to apply to anything else. You're not going to gain anything except a hatred of the architecture they've created. I don't think they're going to make money off of the box, and I don't think it's a good solution. Direct quote from Gabe Newell, everybody. So,
That's my dealer.
yep.
Yep.
So, yeah, and yeah, it's understandable. Like you talk to anyone who worked on that thing, they said it takes forever to do anything. So yeah, I think that so I think '08 is when it really turned to start, and then like '09 was the tipping point where like they put out the Slim and it finally got to $300. It finally got down to $300. Like we're at $300 finally, thank God. Killzone 2 came out that year. Like Killzone 2,
Yep.
big game for them. Resident Evil 5, one of the first games to run actually better on PlayStation. Like you had and then like I feel the big tipping point game of that year was Uncharted 2. Like Uncharted 2, like you played that game and you're like, I have not seen anything like this before, and I don't see anything like this on the 360 at all. And then by that time, every game had trophies, and there were less multiplats that were bad. You would still probably have another year or two of bad multiplats, but there were less. And yeah, it really started to tip around, and like by the end of the generation, they ended up selling more. They sold 87 million to Xbox's 85 million. But man, it took everything they had. Like you look at the amount of games they were putting out from like '08 to 2013. Like it's probably one of the best outputs that Sony's ever had. Like in that time period, you got two Resistances, two Killzones, Last of Us, Uncharted 2, 3, Starhawk, Puppeteer. They went out and they got Journey. They started to do what Xbox did and started to go really court indie devs to get in on the platform.
Right.
It was a hard turn for them. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I went over my PS3 story in there. I like late October I bought it for Metal Gear 4 and I ended up so when did you guys end up on the PS3 train?
I trudged along with my PlayStation 2 until the first Slim, which
The
was
first Slim.
now considered the fat one.
Yeah,
Because then they put out the other two versions or other versions. I specifically waited until there was something I really wanted to play, which happened to be God of War 3. I went out of my way to save up the money to get the console and the game. I even went and got the collectible cups from 7-Eleven, which at the time I lived in a small town where the nearest 7-Eleven was about 2 hours away. And I had my dad drive me there. So because like I was thinking about it while you were talking about how bad that launch was. Yeah, it was the first system that I did not get that edition. I never had a launch edition of the PlayStation 3. I didn't get my first launch edition until PlayStation 4, and then I got the
I think
launch
PS4 was
5.
the PS4 was the first PlayStation I got on like launch day. No, it was the Vita actually. Sorry, no, you're wrong. I'm wrong. It's the Vita. The Vita was the first one I got on launch day.
I'm wrong about what you did. Yes, exactly. That's how that works.
Like Yakuza 3, that was another one that came out during that like period. God of War 3, that was another one. Yeah.
Yeah, when God of War 3 came out, that's when I really got onto the PlayStation 3. And I stayed on it for a while. I even played a lot of my PlayStation 3 games when I got my PlayStation 4. I got on to the PlayStation 3 train when they were doing great, when they were turning everything around. It's like the list of games that like I had to keep it small that I wound up getting into. The Uncharted games were amazing. I love that. God of War 3 was awesome. It was my first platinum. Uh, that was the first time I really got into the online community too. Like I had to ask my dad at that point, can I get on the Wi-Fi with my PlayStation? Why would you want to do that? What is the purpose of connecting your game system to the like trying to explain is like, is it going to cost me anything? No, it's free. I just want to play with my friends online. Go outside and play with them. And I'm like, but they're playing online. And then since then, like, it's never been an issue other than dealing with like, hey, pause the game. I can't. What do you mean
Right.
you
Yep.
can't?
Yeah, that was a
But,
that was a. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
oh no, I was like, yeah, that was definitely the new era for me.
I remember like explaining online gaming to my parents when I was like playing Unreal on the computer in the living room, and like they actually understood it pretty quickly on why you can't pause it. But I remember the first couple of times I had to explain it to them.
Yeah.
Imagine the poor children playing Dark Souls or Demon Souls or Elden Ring trying to explain that now. Trying to explain, no, the game does not pause. They want you to be in a constant
Right.
state of pressure. A couple of comments before we get to the next bit. I bought a PS3 when the PS4 came out, so I could play The Last of Us and Yakuza. Man, you missed out on a lot of good games. There were a lot of really good games that came out, especially on the tail end of its life. Dwarf Wolf Dad, dedication, my dude. I was about to say that. Like, it was so hard to explain online gaming to my parents. Well, my mom, to be specific. Yeah. So, yeah.
I thought I'm lucky I got the best of that era.
I came in like right as the transition was happening, and even then, I still used my 360 as my primary console for about another year, and I actually kind of regret making my PS3 my primary console for the end of the generation, and not just playing exclusives on it because now all those games are in PS3 jail, and I have to keep a PS3
Yep.
around to play them, or I have to rebuy them on Xbox or PC because they're the ones that are backwards compatible. So
Right.
like that's kind of a bummer, but you know.
And to be honest, I never had an Xbox 360. I had the original Xbox and PlayStation 2. So I kept playing that until I found out that they were putting out God of War 3. I mean, I kept up with the news for the most part. I was disappointed with the E3 thing, and I didn't want to get switch consoles just in case they wound up turning things around, which was a good bet because I wound up staying.
Yeah, the thing is like you know I'm a little older, so I managed to get a crappy job to be able to afford things. But
You have
like,
such a nice, clean face for somebody older.
yeah, I know. I age well, man. I age very well. You know,
Like
third
fine wine.
yes, 34-year-old Bronson here, looking like I'm 20. Happens
Yeah.
every time I shave, bro. Every time. Only way you can tell is if you look at my hair, all the white in it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So no, I fully moved to the 360 early in that generation. I got one near the launch. That thing was very much felt like the better bet, and I was super into Halo and playing Halo with the boys. So it was like Halo 3 coming out, no brainer. And I think once
Yep.
again the generation definitely flipped because late in the generation Microsoft focused on Connect and trying to expand the market in kind of a negative way, and it just really snowballed back the other way. um, Comment that they talked about earlier, yes, I played Mag was a cool game. I would love to. I feel like it's ahead of its time. I feel like if you put Mag out
Oh,
today, it would be the sweatiest esport in the world.
I
I
mean,
love
we got
that
squad
game.
now, right?
Sorry, what? Oh, Squad.
We
Yeah.
we have squad. Yeah, squad is kind of, it's not as fantasy based. Like there's a slight like twinge of here's this original world we've made to do this, but like in terms of what Mag was trying to accomplish, like Squad is kind of it.
Kinda, but I also think that like does Squad have like that big like join a faction and different factions are winning or losing?
Well, that's the thing. No,
Also, this is 50. Squad is 50 versus 50. That was 128 versus 128.
it
That
was,
was
but it was
just
so broken up
amazing.
over a large map that you didn't really get the feeling.
That's fair. I don't know, man. There were
I miss it.
some choke points in that game. I remember just feeling like I was getting shot at by 100 people.
Oh yeah, no, there's a
Well,
mission where like there you can like parachute towards an area, and that was a wild thing.
well, that I think that happened on every map. You just had to push hard enough, and
Well, I mean, you
they,
go down and it's like, all right, you have your group, your squad master, and they're getting orders from someone else, and it's like, all right, we have to stick to our objective. And so if you're doing that, like you're not experiencing everything because you're going from point to point, and there you'll encounter an enemy squad or whatever, but you didn't get it very often, as much as you would like.
it was weird. I never had that issue. I was always engaged in like some kind of like choke point, usually.
Um, I mean, you again, you're fighting people, like you're running into people. It's just not like this isn't Lord of the Rings, massive people versus massive people. It
Yeah,
was going through buildings, and
you're not
But
getting, like just
and that's
you're
not
not seeing the
necessarily a
full
bad
120.
thing. It's just,
Yeah, it's just different.
yeah,
It's different.
it's just different.
It's you know
they
I would
did
love the
towards the end of it,
faction-based stuff
though.
to come back.
Oh, absolutely. That's one thing I liked about Planet Side.
Oh,
When I started that one on the console, that one was fun. That would have been way more fun thinking back on the PC, apparently. But
so
hmm.
Mag did put out a map where it was all three factions at once. That one was fun.
that was cool.
I
So
think that was the only game I've ever maxed my entire level out and everything.
uh,
M and Aaron, what are your PlayStation 3 experiences, and then we'll do our favorites and move on to Vita. Vita's probably gonna be real fast.
yeah. Emily, you first.
I remember when my brother got the launch PS3, and it was the rare one that was backwards compatible all the way back.
Yeah, that was both of the launch units. Yeah, that was both of the
Yeah,
launch units. So yeah,
and
now
it
that
was
thing is
like
hard to get.
the
The-
80 gig, I think is what it was,
it was
or the
60.
highest gig.
It was
Oh,
60. It was
60. Thank
60
you.
gig. Yep. Hmm.
Fuck, dude. That was a console.
Definitely big enough. God damn.
Yeah.
And I never got the slim, so we just kept with the big ass PS3.
Yeah, I had a fat for a while, and then I moved to a slim eventually. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I remember getting mine. I want to say a little after you did, Bronson, because we had just started GameCraft a little bit ago.
Yeah.
And I remember I had moved to Maryland around that time, and yeah, it was like there was Metal Gear 4, there was Grand Theft Auto 4, there was eventually Street Fighter 4. Little Big Planet was a big seller. That for me, that was the vibe of Little Big Planet is just fantastic and charming. Um, but the big one I remember the most of like if we were to cut into favorites of the time, like there are a number of games from that era that I really really love, but something that I distinctly associate with the PS3 was Killzone 2. That
That's a
was
good
one hell of a
one.
time. God, I love that game. But yeah, I don't know. I had a good time with the PS3, despite its problems. I split my time between 360 and PS3 quite a bit. That
Yeah.
was just a good generation.
I all three consoles in that generation. I also played a lot of the Wii. It was a very good time to be gaming. A lot of good shit out there.
Yes. Ooh.
Um, you know,
I regret not getting a Xbox 360. I mean, back then, it wasn't. It was more of the fact that we couldn't just go out and get a console like that. And, like I
yeah,
paid for the PlayStation for my own money.
I
Maybe I should have like
I
gotten a 360 because it would have been great.
I I
I
I,
would have.
I mowed a lot of lawns to get that 360, man.
Lawns, weeds, snow shoveling. Oh, that was bad because back then we got more than like 3 feet of snow. It was fun though, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But like it was a lot, and like I saved up a lot of money to get that PlayStation. And
I do think the PS3 was a great console though, and I don't think you made a mistake, especially when you bought it, because that would have been 2010. So that was when Xbox was kind of starting to hit it. Like 2010 was like what I consider to be the last great year for the 360. Uh,
like that's still like a couple years that I missed out on like modern gaming for a little bit. I
yeah.
mean, I did play 360. I went to my
Yeah.
friend's house. They were all big into Halo. I loved Halo. Halo was fun. I mean, nobody wanted to play Halo 1 with me anymore, but
Yeah,
they
3
had
is
a
out. Halo 3.
shinier. Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, looking back on it, they did that thing this week where they were like, "Hey, play any PS3 game or put any like background as like your PlayStation 5 background." And yeah, first one I did was PS3 cuz it when I think back to it, like PS3 probably is my favorite PlayStation. It has the most
Mm.
stuff I am really attached to.
Yeah.
Um,
It was a
you
key
know,
time for us.
yeah. I think PS2 is the best PlayStation as far as
Yeah.
amount of games, but my personal favorite is probably PS3. So, as for favorite game, then and now, I'd probably have to say, my favorite game then was probably Metal Gear Solid 4. Um,
Hmm.
and then now it would probably be Uncharted 2.
I was
Um,
thinking that for me as well. That's what a game that was.
like I play every time I go back and I play Uncharted 2, I'm like, God, this game is so good. It's so perfectly paced. Oh. Uh yeah. So what about you, Em? What was your favorite PS3 game at the time and favorite PS3 game now?
Think of what came out in PS3 that I was playing at that time or what I was watching my brother play on the PS3.
Mm-hmm.
Little Big Planet for sure
That was a good one.
was
That was a good one.
Yes.
a good
That's a
one
good
That's
one.
very
then.
good.
Now can't really think of a game now.
All right,
Like,
fair enough. I'll
yeah.
Yeah, I mean there are a number of games out there, and
those, and then
yeah,
Lucy, I
Uncharted
assume
2 and 3.
Lucy, I assume it's God of War 3 for both.
No, no, it's
No?
actually not.
Okay.
I
Okay.
also forgot to mention how much I was into PS Home. I
Oh,
Ah,
loved PS
okay.
Home.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
All
loved
right.
that online space. I loved hanging out with the few of the friends that I made through that. I loved being. Not to mention that one year where they had the actual E3 set up where you could walk through and take like
Yep.
feel like you're actually a part of
Okay.
the E3
Okay.
experience. I love that.
That thing could have
So,
been so much more than it was. That was so
oh,
cool.
I
I was so
remember
sad that they didn't continue it into 4.
I
Yeah.
remember checking it out at launch when Home launched, Aaron, and it was just like, okay, we have a movie theater that's playing a Paramore music video and a Twilight movie
Yep.
trailer. We have a
Uh-huh.
plaza where you can play like one game, and we have this other thing in this other side room, and you can kind of launch some video games from this, but not really currently. And I remember people would just hang out in the plaza and put out bubble machines.
Yeah. Yes.
Uh,
There was a basketball court where the shooting mechanic didn't get harder no matter where you were on the map. So you'd start playing horse with someone. You'd run to the exact opposite corner of the map and take your shot and make it. And so people would just run all over the map and hit shot after shot after shot because it also wasn't difficult. It was hell. Um, I remember to promote their game, they would create like sideshow things. Like Siren had like a haunted house thing you could walk through and people would jump out. I want to say like Guitar Hero had or Rock Band had like a stage that you walked in, but like the stage in the area was empty. It was like 20 people hanging out, and some people were just kind of like standing around on stage. It's like, man, this thing could be so cool. There's a lot of cool stuff you could be doing here, but we're not quite there.
we ain't there
They
yet.
had
My
the
two
little
favorites.
apartments. Yeah.
Yeah, my two favorites were Killzone and Resistance when they were promoting this.
Sure.
'Cause It,
Ev-
yeah, it was so fun to be able to hang out with people, and then once the game dropped, those spaces at that point, if I remember correctly, did launch you guys into a game,
Yep.
and that was fun.
Also, yeah, I'm sitting here just going like, man, I miss Resistance. I
Yeah, you
miss
are.
Resistance
Oh,
in a
good.
big way.
Resistance and Killzone were just so good on that system.
They were PS4 at least got a Killzone game. It was a good one too.
Yeah,
It was a good one.
yeah. I
Uh,
mean, Resistance 3 was good.
Resistance 3 was
I
great.
don't
I
think
loved
it
it.
could. I prefer 2. 2 is absolute
I
my favorite.
see. I like 2's multiplayer more than 3, but I think 3's campaign is basically perfect. I love Resistance 3's campaign. It is so goddamn good. I get so pissed every time that they talk about Resistance or tease Resistance, and I'm like, I don't even want a new one at this point, guys. I just want you to port the old ones. Just bring them over. Resistance
Right.
Collection. Shit, you can do it without the multiplayer, bro. I'll just play local co-op with people, like, on the co-op of 1 and 2. Like, just, please. Please.
Also, the weird things that Sony's always done with their games, but you could get the PSP port and plug it into your PlayStation 3, and then you have a whole new like side campaign that you were able to play because of
Yeah.
infected mode. That was so cool.
Or, yeah,
And
or...
like I had my PSP and I had those games, and the first time I heard about that, I'm like, oh, cool. All right, I have another reason to play through this game again.
So,
But
yeah.
so we can finish this up. Yes, all right. At the time, I would have to go with God of War, but as I got older, as I am, only 2 years shy, or 2 years older than PlayStation, apparently. Uncharted.
Yeah.
Uncharted 2 and 3, absolutely. Now, I still go back and play those games like at least once a year.
Yeah,
I've
Oh, so go ahead, go ahead.
I was just gonna say is like I was a huge Tomb Raider fan. I love Tomb Raider on the older like the 2 and the 1. So I know about the block boobs, but and all those supposed things you could do, but like it was still a fun game. It was, but Uncharted just hit that like open combat exploration, and I love collectibles. I absolutely love collectibles in video games, and that hit that itch so hard.
So,
Not to mention the Assassin's Creed era was better on the PlayStation.
yeah, look, Assassin's Creed, other than 4, all of the best ones are on the PS3 and 360. Like, 4 is the one that's on the PS4 / Xbox One that's really great. So the rest.
I mean, I like the new ones, like we've talked about before, but as far as like looking back as a whole for a series, a lot of series had their best moments on the three.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so moving on. Hey, Vita, PS Vita. Vita means life. That's not what that console did, though.
Yeah,
Nope.
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 Um,
Oh, so
PS
sad
Vita.
they didn't do better.
PS Vita is the definition of a great device that got completely fucked by its own creators. Um, it was powerful. It had a beautiful OLED screen. It had decent battery. It even had a great light setup of first games in the first launch window. Um, but Sony decided to give it obscenely priced memory cards that were like $100 for 32 gigs. You know, that were proprietary that you couldn't use on anything but the Vita. You know, and then for their
Yep.
weird cell service thing, you could only get cell service for the cell service Vita through goddamn AT&T. That is the only time you were able to hear the boos on the live stream when they announced the partner
That's
for the
right.
Vita. And I remember Nick, who was like our lead on the Gamer Access that we just joined at the time, being like, "Yeah, that's the only time I ever heard boos on an E3 press conference."
Yep.
But
Ooh.
man, that thing. But it didn't. As someone who owned a Vita and loved it, none of that mattered to me because it was perfect. I could play full, real console games on the go. Aaron, I have the Platinum in PlayStation All Stars, but not the PS3 version, the Vita version. I played through all of Sly Cooper 4 on the Vita. You know, like yeah, like the Vita was an amazing platform that it after its second year on the market, its creators abandoned it. Like they put out Killzone Mercenaries and they're like, "All right, cool, Indies, Japan, you got this. Peace.
Right.
We're gonna go worry about the PS4 now." That's what happened. They were like, "We're
Yep.
done." You know, they're like, "We're gonna fuck it over with these dumbass proprietary memory cards. We're not gonna give it option to do HDMI out or any type of video out, and then we're gonna just leave it to die." You know, and that sucks because there was a ton of great games on it. If you had an indie game that was coming out and it wasn't going to get a Vita port, I wasn't going to play it
Mm.
because it was the best place to play indies. That yeah, like that's where I played Guacamelee. That's where I played Guacamelee 2. That's where I played Shovel Knight. That's where I played like just tons of great indie games. Beautiful screen, just so goddamn good. But it got fucked by its own creators. Especially when PS4 started to do really well, they were just like, let's funnel all our resources into PS4, and it's very apparent.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
God fucking damn it. Also, comment in the chat. Yes, Halo 2 was the best. So good. um, I get heated
I
about
did
Vita.
actually get this.
Sorry, what, Lucy?
Oh, I was just looking at chat. It was like I actually also got one of those slide tops, but mine was red.
I never got the slide top one. Ray had one actually. He got a black one.
I got the one from the God of War.
Of course you did. It's a theme here. There's a theme behind you, as it seems.
Almost. Like I wound up getting more, like with the PlayStation 4. Like and when we get into that, like I got into a lot of other games. I did, and then with the 5, I've played so many games.
Yeah. So
I've played more games as an adult than a kid. That's sad.
I mean, same. Like I started to play more games in my 20s than I definitely did my teens. And in my 30s I've kind of slowed down a little bit just due to life this year, especially just because we had the housing renovations and the job hunt and all this other stuff. But yeah. All right, so oh, sorry, go ahead.
sorry.
No, go
I
ahead.
was gonna say, it's like, it's surprising. I don't think any of us talked about GTA 5 or the PlayStation 3 because that's when it started.
It did, but I think most people really associate that as like 4 and PC and whatnot. Like it was a PS3 game for a year, and it was a great PS3 game, but most people I know moved on to playing it on the other stuff.
We got more stuff.
Yeah. So, yeah. Where did we trail off though? Vita. I bought a Vita at launch. I traded in my. I had 3 PSPs at the time. And I traded them all in to pay for most of my Vita. And it's the only game, it is the only system where I bought a shit ton of games at launch. I bought Uncharted, I bought Marvel vs. Capcom, Luminous Electronic Symphony, Wipeout, and then because I bought all those games, they had a deal where if you bought a bunch of games, you got a big discount on another one. So I bought Hot Shots Golf. And then when I got home, I bought Super Stardust for Vita, and I played the shit out of my Vita the first year. I played most of its life that way, to be fair. So, so yeah. Nah, man, great memories with it. Favorite game then, Luminous Electronic Symphony. Actually, no, Persona 4 Golden. I did 3 runs of Persona 4 Golden on Vita, and it was the best place to play Persona 4. It's Persona 4 machine. If you haven't played Persona 4 Golden, you should. That game is dope. You know, you can have Chie kick tanks into the sun. What do you want? You know, and then the other one is the one now. When I look back, is Luminous Electronic Symphony. I remember. I used to play that game during my downtime at work when I was a caregiver, like when no one was around. And I remember one night, I just got entranced in it because nothing was happening. I played Luminous for 4 hours straight. Just 4 hours straight of Luminous Electronic Symphony. And I got this obscene high score that, like, any friend I have who would pick up the game or play it or borrow my Vita to play it would look at that score and just... I remember my friend Joe just sent me a message. How the fuck? So
lots of time.
4 hours straight of just staying alive. So
yep.
All right. What about you, Lucy? You being the other Vita owner.
Uncharted was up there.
Golden Abyss, yeah, Golden Abyss was good. Sorry, go ahead.
I love the little weird things that they allowed you to do with the touch screen and whatnot.
Yeah, like holding the paper up to the light. That was a cool one.
That was pretty cool.
They definitely did some Kojima style stuff with it.
Yeah, they did. I mean, God of War was fine on it. At this point, I was starting to get a little God of War out.
Well, they didn't get a native God of War for it. They just ported the PSP and PS2 games.
Yeah, which I didn't get. But at that point, like, I'd have to say that, like, Unit 13 was one of my favorites at the time.
Yeah, that was a good game. That was the last game by the SOCOM people, by the way, and the MAG people. That was the last game they got to make before being shut down. Zipper Interactive.
And the thing about the Vita with shooters is you had dual sticks.
And they were real sticks. They were real analog sticks.
Yeah, and I loved it. And with shooting games, looking back, and maybe it's just because of nostalgia being brought up with Black Ops, but that Call of Duty, the Call of Duty Declassified was actually, I really liked that one.
I did not. That game was not good. I
played all the mechanics, not the story.
I played a lot of Resistance Burning Skies on Vita.
Oh shit!
And
actually, I changed my answer. That one.
That game was also not good. I reviewed it and I gave it, I think, a 6 out of 10. It was squarely mediocre, but I do remember it was one of the easiest platinums I've ever gotten. And I also remember trying the online out for the review and murdering Greg Miller over and over again. So that was funny.
Which he deserves.
Oh, Greg's not that bad.
No, he's not that bad. I've listened to his podcasts enough. I'm just like, you need to lose a few more games. That's all I'm saying.
You need to take some L's, sir.
Yeah, you need to take an L, shirtless Spider-Man.
Yeah, so, yeah, no, okay, so, there's that. Alright, well, so, Unit 13,
Sad I can't
Limos.
talk about it more.
Aaron, do you have any Vita memories or anything? It's okay to say no,
Absolutely none. I never considered getting a Vita for a second.
What about you?
I went to the GameStop. They had a
good.
display there. I played Wipeout 2064 and was like, this thing runs like garbage. And and played the Uncharted game they had, and I was like, it's Uncharted and portable. That's neat. And then never thought about it again.
Fair. Emily, do you have Vita memories?
Playing Fat Princess while waiting for a band to play at PAX.
Hell yeah,
Fat
Fat
Princess.
What a good game.
Also, I just realized that I was wrong about my favorite. It was Assassin's Creed Liberation.
Oh, that is a good one. That was actually a full game, Assassin's Creed game on Vita. Quick, I actually do have one weird Vita news story, or not news story, but Vita story of mine, where when I first went up to go to PAX in Seattle, or the second time I went to PAX in Seattle, and I flew and I roomed with you and Quinn, Emily, and your brother. On the way back, we had to leave the next morning for our flight at like 4 a.m. And
yeah.
And my Vita fell out of my bag in the cab, and I didn't notice until I was in like the airplane to pull, because I was like, oh, I got time, I'm gonna pull my Vita, and I was like, oh no, and it's not my messenger bag, and I'm freaking out, and I call the cab, and he's like, oh yeah, I got it, dude. I'm gonna leave it at the depot when I get there, and the lost and found. I'm like, how the fuck am I gonna get this thing from Seattle? What the fuck? So I call the cab company when I get back into Reno, and I'm exhausted, and they're like, yeah, you'll just have to call FedEx to come pick it up. And yeah, I paid $20, and the cabbie was cool. He gave it to Lost and Found, the cab company. No one was a dick, and yeah, I got, FedEx got me my Vita back. So
nice.
I was about to be very pissed off as a very broke college student who really did not want to have to spend another $300.
I know.
So,
Dad Wolf in the chat. Gods, I haven't heard that name in a long time. Fat Princess.
I loved Fat
it's
Princess
so
on the PS3.
good.
It was such a good game.
So good. So good.
Speaking of studios that are shut down, so yeah, that's Vita. All right, just like its life, cut short too soon.
Yep.
All right, this next one's gonna be a big one. PS4, baby.
Oh.
PS4. I remember going to the midnight launch and interviewing people in the line.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
That was a thing. That was a fun time, just interviewing people in the line, and man, you knew this was gonna be bad when so things flipped around at that year's E3. Sony had a killer show. They were coming out $100 cheaper, and they didn't have the used.
Boy, did they make it a point?
Yep, and they didn't have the used games drama because Xbox didn't have a message. Like they came out and they said no used games, and they said, well, used games, but you got to check in. And then they were like, no, used games are fine, and then they stayed there. But the only message that people got was no used games. So even when they rolled back on it, I remember Anthony and I interviewing people in line and them saying the Xbox doesn't play used games, and and then me being like, oh, well, that changed, right? And they're like, yeah, but I'm also excited for, whatever game. And I'm like, all right, cool, man, thank you. And then going to Anthony and I'm like, if this is the rest of the country, Microsoft is fucked. Like that was
And they were.
Yeah, like that was the tone of the time, man. Like I remember just going through that line, and it was like 80 people, and just being like, in the GameStop mall, just be like, boom, 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 every other answer. Occasionally you get people like, oh, I want to play Black Flag, or I want to play Infamous, whatever. But I remember that.
My specific memory is Jimmy Fallon. Like the PlayStation went on Jimmy Fallon, and Jimmy Fallon goes, "So this is the one that plays used games." I was like, "Oh, all right, that just went out on national television. This is over."
It'll tell you how many.
Let's see.
Oh goodness.
And wouldn't you know it, that's exactly what happened.
And then I'm just gonna play this video, the used game instructional video that Sony did.
Oh yeah.
Because Microsoft was being super cagey. By the way, Shuhei Yoshida in this video. Not gonna.
This is how you share your games on PS4. Thanks.
PlayStation.
Still hilarious.
I feel like when they released that, it was like the biggest mic drop that PlayStation ever did.
It was that, and it was this is the second, like, they did the used games thing, and then they did the $100 $399 price thing. Which, fun fact, that's the second time in E3 history they did that. Because at their first
20 seconds of fuck you, Microsoft. Hell yeah, Wolf Dead.
No, they were obviously very hungry. Like they really wanted to make a statement that E3, and they did, boy. They did in a big way.
Well, I mean, the prior console was such a big thing for them, and they were. I mean, they pulled it around. They had to kill this one.
Yeah, well, there's actually a story that I heard from Sean Layden in an interview he was doing, I think, with VGC this week, where he's just like, during the PS3, they were like, this might be the last PlayStation. This is such a bomb right now. This might be the last PlayStation. So, like, yeah, this one, they wanted to come out swinging, and they fucking did, boy. It certainly helps that their primary competitor shot themselves in both feet, and then somebody crowbarred their knee. But,
It was the Joker.
Yeah. Busted kneecap.
This one time Batman did not step in to help.
But yeah, so I think that was a big part of that. As for the PS4 itself, its launch lineup was solid. Killzone was good. Resogun was great. Resogun's an all-timer. And yeah, the one big thing they did that was new was the share stuff. You could stream from the console, you could take screenshots from the console, you capture video from the console. That was all that was
stream from the console.
Yeah.
Wait, didn't you just say that?
I said that, yeah.
So my bad.
Yeah, you're good. You could do all of that. And all of that together, yeah, dude, it was something else. It was something else, man.
It's how I started my streaming career. I mean, I directly streamed until I became affiliate, and once I was able to get a PC, well, I was also working a full-time job, and I was like, fuck it,
Yeah.
as well. But yeah, I started with the PlayStation 4. Did a lot of ARC.
Yeah, I comment in the chat. Honestly, I was an Xbox fan until PS4. Then they backwards compatibility. It wasn't backwards compatible. Couldn't you use games without jumping through loopholes? I was like, nope, and went to PS4. And they eventually got backwards compatibility, which Sony never did because of the cell. And they went back on the used games thing. But by the time that they made all those choices, it was too late. Too late, bro.
Not to mention the Connect and there was
Yeah.
too much that they kind of goofed.
So
Yeah.
much. So much
And
shit.
and like, yeah, this thing was kind of a continuation of what the 360 was doing, but with share features. Thing is, those share features actually end up helping a lot of games out. Because I remember Yakuza became the juggernaut franchise it is now because people were sharing all the crazy shit in Yakuza 0 with the PS4 share feature, and it blew up. Like, it became a massive thing because of it. So, yeah, like... as for PS4 itself, I think that's... My problem with the PS4 is, in the middle of the PS4 generation, it started to just not feel as PlayStation anymore. What I mean by that is PlayStation throughout its history is kind of marked by like trying weird stuff, doing new franchises, doing like having a lot of just unique IP, and they kind of filtered down to making 2 or 3 same type of games, like these narrative action adventure games. And I love them. I love the living shit out of Spider-Man and Ghost of Tsushima and Last of Us and Uncharted, but like it feels like that's mostly what they focus on now. And they do not have the same level of personality that they used to have when it comes to their menus or their anything else. So like PS4 to me, like the beginning of that generation feels like, oh yeah, this is another great PlayStation. Versus like towards the end of it is like, this is a very good game box. Yeah.
Right.
So
Yep.
and
Yeah, they did really give up on doing like newer stuff.
like they did some
Like
new
a
IP.
couple of those. Well,
But,
yeah.
like Horizon was a
But
new
some of
IP
the
and it
older
was a
ones
really good
died on
IP.
them.
Sorry, what?
I said a couple of their like long-standing ones also died on the PlayStation 4.
Yeah, and then they, and it's not like they haven't done that. Like we haven't had a new Jack and Daxter in almost 20 years. I think it might actually be 20 years.
Infamous, Killzone, Resistance.
Yeah, like we got an
Twisted
Infamous on
Metal.
PS4. We got it. We didn't get a Twisted Metal. We didn't get a, and that's fine because you only have a limited amount of studios and they only make one game at a time, maybe two. So that makes sense. It's just they also like weren't making as many games. Like you look at the, when you go and you look back at the PS3, it's like we have 3 Uncharted's, 3 Killzones, 3 Resistances, 3 Motorstorms, Fat Princess, Warhawk, Starhawk, Puppeteer, and like, yeah, the PS4 had plenty of exclusives, but like not nearly as many. And a lot of it was third-party games that were really great, and that kind of thing. So, yeah.
I'm not.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say is like thinking back, like I have more happy nostalgia when I think of the PlayStation 3 all the way back to the one, and when I think of the PlayStation 4, there's nothing really special. I had, I mean, I started streaming on it. I had a lot of fun on it, but I don't really identify it as anything other than just something I played games on, and I was already out of being a one console fanboy that I was even during the PlayStation 3, because that's another reason I didn't jump. I was like, no, so Sony will figure this out. And they
I
did, but
Sorry, frog in my throat. Yeah, I think for
damn
me,
chocolate
like,
frogs.
uh, uh, yeah, I have some good memories with the PS4 for sure. That launch was a lot of fun. The PS4 is when I went to those 3 E3s, so that was really cool. Getting to see those games early and getting to do those interviews and whatnot. That was really neat. So I have a lot of good memories with the PS4, but like the console itself, especially like after the first couple of years, kind of just felt like this is a solid game box. Well, what about you, Aaron?
Yep. I mean, that's what it is. Like, there's not much to talk about with the PS4 because its assignment was just be a decent console to play games on because it felt like that standard was not being met with Xbox. So that's all they had to do, and they did it.
Yep, it was easy to develop for. It was well spec for the time. It was affordable. It checked all the boxes. Like the
That's
new.
all they needed to do, and I got a PS4.
Yep, same. Like we all did. We all played Destiny on PS4. I remember that. I remember the whole website logging on, playing Destiny for PS4. That was the thing we did. Yep.
And that was it. And that's where we played all the games. That was it.
Yep. And yep, I remember there was a small point in time when you couldn't turn off HDCP. So for the first like 6 months of its existence, any footage we got, we had to capture on Xbox, which was funny as hell. Like we had to keep telling people, we're playing all these games on PlayStation because they run better right now and look a little better, but we have to capture on Xbox because of the HDCP problems.
Yep.
So yeah, that was a funny thing. Yeah, I don't know, man. I look back on it, and like, I think that it was fine. It had some really great games that I loved.
It still feels like part of that. It feels part of that modern era that we're still in. It feels like that was the one that like really has set the tone. That is still going to this day because it did it. It was the refined version of the 360 PS3 era.
Yep,
and
like
they did it.
Like the 360 started that what is modern gaming, and this kind of cleaned it up, and now we're kind of just in the 4K version of that. So what it is.
Oh, you know what? This is a good time to talk about the original PlayStation controllers.
Mm-hmm.
The conversation around them. We had this conversation a long time ago, but I remember people as in the PS3 era specifically complaining about the old PlayStation controller, and it was because they were holding it wrong. But
What? Wait, what?
so you remember the original PlayStation controllers? It's much smaller. It's than your Xbox controller, and people would play Xbox and they would have this controller that filled your palms, and it was pretty comfortable. So then people would go back to the PS3 and it's like, why is this thing so small? It cramps my hands, and it's because you're supposed to let it rest in your fingers. It's not supposed to be up against your palms unless you're a child. You let it rest in your fingers, and it's a really comfortable way of doing it.
Yeah,
but
yes, you and I used to have those rants all the time. Like you are in fact holding it wrong.
right, but like I think that really set the tone of, just people prefer it filling their hand, and so PS4 came out and like, all right, let's make something that fits better, and I imagine the PS5 controller, it's closer to that old 360 setup.
Oh, I have one right here. So, yeah, it kind of
PS4.
is. It kind of is. I will say that you basically have to grip it. And
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. I will say that I do prefer the PS4 one to the 5. Outside of the haptics, and the reason is because the PS4 you could do both, in my opinion. You could let it rest, or you could grab. Versus this one, I have to grab, and that was something that was really fucking hard for me to get around when I first got a PS5.
I mean, you want to talk about like this is, if you want to notch one victory for Xbox, but they led the charge of here is controller that fills your hand compared to the PS2, 3 control or PS1, 2, 3 controllers, and the GameCube and all that. Like Xbox is like, nah, let's make this thing. We went too big with the Duke. We shrunk it down, and then 360 is like, here we go.
I look back at the like Xbox controllers now, and right now the Xbox controller is my preferred one for the out of the current batches. Like I use my Series X controller on basically everything, except my PlayStation.
Good
like
controller.
The PlayStation, it is. It's a great controller. They did a really good job with the Series X. It's good. The A+.
But again, like this does not like go
No,
far from the 360 controller.
no,
They really nailed it in the 360 era.
yeah, like they cleaned up the edges a little bit on it. They made the battery better. They made it so the sticks weren't rubbery bullshit anymore.
Right.
Yeah. Speaking of PlayStation, we need to have a talk. Stop with these
Okay.
rubber fucking sticks. These rubber on the top, it just wears down. Stop, please.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm gonna have to
begging
agree
you
on
out
that
here.
one. It's a little bit of a pain in the ass. So,
But then
Sony,
how are they going to sell you the replacement
next console?
sticks?
You see this? It's fucking plastic.
Do they
Fucking just
actually?
plastic.
That's how you do it, people. That's
Uh,
how you fucking do
Do
it.
they actually
Alright?
sell replacement
you.
sticks? I thought you just get caps.
Sorry, what are you referring to?
Do they sell replacement sticks?
They do for the DualSense.
This
Or not the
feels like
DualSense,
rubber on the
the
Series
Pro.
X. Is it plastic?
It feels like plastic to me. Either way, these don't wear down nearly as hard as the PlayStation ones. Like, I've had this controller for what, this is 3 years now, and this is barely wear down at all. Versus, like, you look at my PlayStation controller I've been using the past 4 years that's in the living room, and that shit is fucking worn down as shit. So,
Wow.
yeah, I don't know. Anyway, the main thing I will give them credit for is that share feature ended up being really ahead of its time. That share feature where you could that's how that Persona started to blow up because of that a little bit, more than it was already, and then Yakuza got to, like, it gave a lot of developers more press than they otherwise would have gotten, and I do like that part of it. And it gave me a bunch of really dumb memories that I can go look at on Facebook and be like, oh yeah, that's when I played that, huh? Yeah. Yeah, so, you know. Alright, that's PS4. Well, let's talk about our favorite then, favorite now. Does anyone want to go on this one?
I mean, at the time, like, Destiny was the big game.
I for sure thought you were
like...
going to say Death Stranding.
Well, I know then. I'm talking about then.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I'm trying to think of, like, you know, I just remember that was the game that was, like, beyond Xbox screwing that whole situation. Like, here is Destiny that's coming out, and it's going to be this huge ass event. And it didn't end up being as big as they wanted it to be. But for a while there, we were all, you know, going to the loot cave and trying to do what we could. It was a big moment for a while. So for my then, I'm gonna have to give it to Destiny. Now, Death Stranding, just because it's just such a wild vision. Who is making a game like this on this budget? How did you make walking engaging? I don't understand this
The
at all.
same person that made a AI erase your data on a PlayStation 1.
Yeah.
Or messes
Yeah.
your memory.
No, he read your memory, so you would read your mind. And you like to play Castlevania.
Yep.
Yep, that was a good
Wild.
one. What?
And,
No Rumble.
Rumbo's back.
Such a good bit.
Yep. It's a good bit.
Like, you need to
They
swap.
didn't do anything like that with Death Stranding, I don't think.
That's a bummer. They should.
That's sad.
They need to do it with 2 because they're using this thing, and this thing has a bunch of weird haptics. Come on, Kojima.
Right.
This thing has a bunch of weird haptic feedback stuff. Astrobot does it. You can do it.
Right.
Yeah,
that's it for me.
I would have to say the thing that kind of defined me at the time for that system, probably Infamous Second Son. I loved that. That was the reason why I wanted to get a PS4 so early. Is Infamous Second Son was just, and I platinumed it. I played the shit out of it. I loved every minute of it. You know, there's a couple other games that could have gone to that spot, Persona 5, another one that I was just obsessed with. Loved every minute of it. Titanfall 2. I played Titanfall 2 on
Yes.
PS4. Like, yeah, but if we're thinking that early, I would probably have to say like that generation was so long in particular that I would have to say early in the generation Infamous. Otherwise, I'd probably say Titanfall 2. And then looking back now and considering how much I played it and how much I loved it in hindsight, um, probably Dragon Ball Fighters.
Ooh,
Like I
yeah.
played so much, and that was my platform for it. You know, I could have said Spider-Man as well. Spider-Man was another one where I got the platinum, and I've gotten the platinum twice because I platinumed it again on PS5.
PC.
But no, I'm working on the PS1 5 or PC one sometimes. But yeah, like, but Dragon Ball Fighters, like, I played 300 fucking hours of that game, and I entered tournaments, and I went crazy. Like, that was an amazing experience. So yeah. Yep. What about you, M? Your favorite PS4 then, favorite PS4 now?
Um, Probably Black Flag then.
That was
Only
a good one.
because that is a good one. Only because I was the companion app when my brother was playing, so I could guide him to where everything was, which was also the case for Watch Dogs,
Mm-hmm.
which is also a
Oh.
favorite then.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now, right, it's a toss up between Second Son and Ghost.
Okay.
Okay. Nice.
All right.
I
Ghost
mean,
of
with me being
Tsushima.
the ultimate Sucker Punch fangirl, I might as well have
I,
those two as the
I
game
would
now.
say Infamous Second Son for then makes sense because that game came out like 4 or 5 months after launch, and yeah, Ghost of Tsushima is a banger. That game is an absolute like Ghost of
Absolute banger.
Yotei. I'm super stoked for next year. Yeah. So
Let's
An-
go.
anyway, Lucy, what about you? Favorite then, favorite now?
This was a hard one thinking of because like trying to think back, what did I used to play? What was I always playing? And it's a toss up between Destiny and Second Son, to be honest. So I'll just have them as a tie because I enjoyed Second Son because I'm a Sucker Punch fan
Yeah.
and I love that series. Even though I didn't mention it for like PlayStation 3 because it was amazing. Number 2 was my favorite. But yeah, I'm gonna just keep them at a tie because when I was hanging out with friends and gaming with friends, it was Destiny all the way through up to Destiny 2. Even though I fell off of that one pretty quick. Um, as of now, I have to give it to like my roots as a streamer. It's Ark. Ark was so much fun with everyone we played with. I even got an extra PlayStation 4 just to set it up as like a server for itself for us to play on. And I kept that thing going for a couple of months, just never went off. And it just was our Arc server. And uh, yeah, I'm gonna have to go with that. It was so
Oh,
much fun. I miss those days.
all right. Well, that's it. Now we're on to PS5, a console that launched in the middle of a pandemic. We're on year 4 of its life as of last month.
You hear that? You're 4 years old. Get a
Yes,
job.
you made it. I got one at launch. I got one for myself and Ray. Ninja, like, our entire group was just like, we're gonna make sure anyone who wants one can get one. So I
Yeah.
ended up having 3 active pre-orders. Ninja had like 4. And like I got mine. Ray got his. He paid me. Like it. So yeah, we had our little posse at him. And yeah, I got Demon Souls and Spider-Man Miles Morales, and I platinumed Miles Morales within the first week. I loved it. I just bought a new TV at the time to see the 4K difference, and that was real good. You can you it was one of those things where you noticed the fidelity jump if you had the right TV, but if you were just seeing this like on internet video, it was kind of hard to justify. The big difference though was the SSD. The fact that everything loaded super quick and still does. God, that was a game changer for me. The fact that you would die in Demon Souls and not have to wait to immediately go do an attempt again, that alone was just, that changes how you play video games. It legitimately changes how you play games, in a big way. I think the haptics are cool. I think the touch feedback stuff is really neat. I wish more games used it well. The only games that have been wowed by it so far have been the Horizon games with the bow and arrow stuff. Spider-Man, where it does a thwip whenever you do the web, and then depending on the velocity you're going on, it becomes harder or easier to hold the trigger down.
That sounds awesome.
So that's kind of neat. Gran Turismo does a good job replicating, steering a car with it. So there's some really neat haptic feedback stuff with it. But generally my issue with the PS5, and I've heard this from a couple other people, is it feels very cold. Like, it feels very like if PS4 had this is game box vibe, this thing is like this is for half of its life. This thing feels like it is all that. In fact, when I logged on to the PS5 this week and we got that big PS1 intro with the, hey, we're celebrating our 30th anniversary, here's these different themes, I was like, this feels weird for this console. It doesn't feel right. This does not feel, because this console its entire life has never felt like when you log on to all the other older PlayStations, they kind of have this vibe of we're quirky or we're warm or we're whatever our vibe is. Versus this one
trying
is
to get you in trouble with your wife and your parents.
Yeah.
Them and NZXT would get along. So, but no, versus this thing, it always felt kind of sterile, almost kind of what you get out of when I think of what PC gaming has been in the past, where it's yep, this is a box of parts that's to play games, and not a console. Yep. I think the controller is the one thing that is different about that, and I hope that changes, and I hope PlayStation does more stuff like Astrobot to make that viable. Because over the 4 years, it's been it has some really good exclusives. Ragnarok was a great game. Horizon 2 was a good game. Spider-Man 2 was one of the best games of last year. It plays all the multi-plats better than its counterparts a lot of the time. And if you don't want to play on PC, it is a great place to play games. I think the Pro, in a lot of instances, is a nice upgrade if you have the right TV. That said, at the end of the day, it continues the vibe of PS4, other than its controller of, yep, it's a game box. It's a good game box.
Yep.
It's adequately priced. Has some cool exclusives.
It's just the embodiment of what happens when you don't have competition. It's just let's do it again.
Yeah, and they're taking that super literally. We didn't make a ton of money on VR. We're still gonna do it again. It's okay. Yeah, obviously, the then and now then's harder on this. So it's the game that was a standout for me on this system is Spider-Man 2. There are other games I love to death on it. I think Astrobot is a must-play, the new one. It is especially if you've been with PlayStation all 30 years. If you want to celebrate 30 years of PlayStation, go play fucking Astrobot. Both of those games.
Right.
The first one celebrates the hardware. The second one celebrates the software. You will have a fucking great time in both. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, Spider-Man 2 otherwise is the game that to me is oh, this is what a studio focusing on this hardware, doing their best, that's world class can accomplish. What about you, guys? What's your PS5 memories and PS5 whatnot? I know it's a little newer, so it's probably fresher in your mind.
I'm looking through my game catalog, and all these I could play on the PlayStation 4 for the most part.
Yeah, but I get that, but also, do they run as good? Do they look as good? That's always the question. Like, I actually kind of hate that thing where it's just like I'm playing on PS4. I'm like, yeah, bro, at 30 FPS, looking like someone covered your screen in Vaseline.
Like,
You
don't
know?
get me wrong. Like, I've had mine since launch Christmas. I got mine as a Christmas present for my ex fiance. It it just I wound up getting one right when they were very very hard to get for a couple of years. So I had one. I was streaming with it. I loved it. I've loved it. I played everything
Yeah, it's
on
it's
it since.
it's been my
And
primary platform outside of a handful of games. You know, so yeah.
in all honesty, I think my then and now is only partially the same as yours. Then, I think the coolest thing that I did with it at the beginning was Astrobot. That first intro thing, I love that. I played that more than I played a couple of games that I had already bought because I got Demons, and I was loving that for like weeks until I was like, all right, I'm done with this. This is pissing me off. Uh, it, Astrobot was just so much fun, and it used every part of the system. And I wish they really did that more with a lot of other games. But as far as now, it's yet again by once per week. It is the Avengers game. It is absolutely my favorite. I'm still playing it. I was playing it last night.
Fair enough.
It is my favorite game on the PlayStation 5.
All right. Oh, sorry, Aaron. I can see you saying something. Go ahead.
I just, it's a pretty good game. We've said
It
everything we can possibly say about this game.
that is a game that we have, and yeah, it's Square. Way to fuck it up. Good job,
Yep.
boys.
Yep.
Uh,
Fucking assholes.
so, what about you, Favorite PS5 game?
I'm probably in that same boat as you, Bronson. Spider-Man 2,
Hmm.
favorite then. A little biased though because I met Miles Morales. Um, Now is probably Astrobot.
The new Astrobot's so
Mm.
fucking good.
I'm
That
gonna
is
have to get it. I
it.
have to get it.
It.
I have to get it, and maybe I'll change my tune. I
Uh,
probably will. Astrobot is amazing. Oh, we got another one that needs to be banned.
Ah,
uh,
shit.
uh,
Great. Wonderful.
that
An
God,
opportunity.
Eat
twice in one
forearm.
episode.
Ew, gross.
you know what? You know what's funny? Me and Anthony, we got a spam comment on our newest podcast episode of the YouTube video, and like 2 game caves ago, someone called us idiots on a couch, and we're like, "This is how we know we're getting successful: is we're getting spam and hate comments. That's how
I
you know."
knew.
Oh.
Uh,
It's good.
uh,
That's fucking weird.
that's how you know you're getting successful. You get spam and
Who's
hate
not an
comments.
idiot on a couch? You cannot look intelligent on a couch.
Well,
You
we
just
we
look lazy. I mean, like, it's
we
the whole
we
point of a couch.
we record those analytic videos on a couch. So, you know. All right, so
Oh,
all right. All right,
I
Aaron.
didn't mean anything bad.
It's all right, man.
Just don't look as like you run like a corporate 500 from a couch. Everyone sits on a couch. Everyone sits on a couch. Everyone that does things on a couch does those.
All right. So
They need to come up. They need to up their game. Is what I'm saying.
well, it's where we're going to be recording for a while cuz we do not have additional chairs in the office. So all right. So last but not least, hey Aaron,
I
I know
knew
you
a
don't have a
guy.
I know you don't have a PS5 yet, so for you, I'm gonna do something a little different. Um,
Okay.
what games are you when you get a PS5? Assuming you do, um,
Hmm.
what are say like 2 or 3 games that you really want to check out?
Well, so I've been holding off on PS5 for a number of reasons. It's usually a mix of finances and interest in what is being offered. I, in the last 5 years, went real hard on PC gaming, and I've really enjoyed that switch. Um, having everything on this massive machine that I'm already spending a bunch of time on was fantastic. The multi-monitor setup, all that good stuff. Like it's just a really enjoyed that. So, and then the slow launch of the PS5 and the slow rollout of games at the start was just like I am not feeling any pull to spend this much money on a console and a game for this experience. So I've been holding off for a while. As the price of the original PS5 starts to go down,
Yeah, I think it
um,
went down to like
my
375 during Black Friday this year.
yeah, the Slim Digital is at 375 right now.
Oh shit. Okay.
Looked it up while we were doing this, so um, I'm getting now we're getting to the point where there are potential, there are tariffs coming that will make trying to upgrade my PC difficult. And as the technology for the games, get better and better as the years go on, like my computers are not going to be able to hang. Um, so I can
Yeah,
see, yeah,
playing Marvel Rivals whenever I use a Doctor Strange portal was like, ooh.
yep. Yep. So getting a console, even if it's just the core, console, seems like a good investment for the next 4 years or so, however long they stretch this console generation out, um, just to have something stable. So as far as what I'm looking forward to, I still need to check out. I played a good portion of Spider-Man 1, but I didn't finish it, and then haven't touched Spider-Man 2. So those are definitely go-tos. Um, Death Stranding 2 is the one that's like, if it wasn't for the tariff situation, I'd probably wait till Death Stranding 2 comes out. Uh,
Hmm.
but
No,
and then
the tariff
yeah,
situation had me go fuck that $2,800 computer next year is looking like it's turning into a 4K computer next year.
yeah,
And I don't mean that it can
yes,
just play games in 4K. I mean it's gonna be its price also.
right, exactly. So yeah, so I'm sitting here thinking like, all right, so it depends on what job I land and what income I'm gonna have, whether I am willing to go in all in on a pro in the next 6 weeks, uh,
Mm.
and for that safe window, and then yeah, and then it'll be Death Stranding and Spider-Man. Want to check out Astrobot? I've not touched Astrobot.
Yeah, it comes with Astro's what is it? Playroom?
Astro's
Playroom.
Playroom.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah.
it
That's
comes
a
with
good one.
that, and then yeah, it'll be a place to play some stable multiplayer games such as Marvel Rivals. So,
Yep. Yeah.
although I'm gonna hold off on switching over to PlayStation to play Marvel Rivals until they get cross progression figured out.
No, I feel
Mm.
that. I built it up to yeah, like for me the big thing is like I know I'm gonna build that new rig next year, but as I have gotten older and as I continue to work in a technical field where I have to solve problems, any time that a PC game a port is bad or like it is just not agreeing with my computer, I'm like, cool, I'm just gonna play this on PlayStation now. I do not have the wherewithal for this anymore. No, thank you. I'm good.
I was playing Rivals and my laptop crashed, or not the laptop itself, the game crashed 3 times in a row. I'm just like, hmm, okay,
Yep. I
all right.
I I had that problem until I updated my drivers, and it's been fine since. But like
See,
you
yeah,
run it.
my drivers are updated, unfortunately.
Yeah, so like I run into these issues and I'm just like, you know, I just don't like right now at work I'm making these two automations and I'm just like when I get off work I don't want to like boot up Marvel Rivals, have it crash, and then 2 times and me go, all right, what's causing this crash? Okay, update the drivers. Is it still working? Great. But if not, it's like, all right, what's causing the crash? Is it the game itself? Is
Yep.
it something on my machine? And that's the part. And like, I know how to fix all this shit. That's the thing. It's just that I don't want to bother with it. I
Yeah.
don't want to bother. I'm just like, no, I'm good. I'm gonna go and do this instead. You know, like, and that's the advantage you do get out of a console is the stability and put game in it run. You know,
Exactly.
like so yeah.
Yeah, the PlayStation 5 is probably in my future. Just don't know what yet. Depends on what money I'm gonna have access to. So
Yep. Yeah.
seems like a neat little thing, but it's not like I'm dying to get in there.
Yeah. I get that. Like I was a huge fan of that first Spider-Man game, and that's partly why I want to dive in so early, because of Miles Morales and whatnot. So yeah, all right. Well, that's all of them. We did all the PlayStations. We talked about all of our PlayStation stuff.
Woo! Yeah, what a
we,
history.
we were gonna do that IGN thing, but we'll save that for another time. The show ran long.
Yep.
Show ran really long.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Happy. I hope in the future PlayStation continues doing what they did with Astrobot and less of what they did in late PS4. Like I really want them to continue to do cool new stuff and kind of celebrate their history of, you know, doing neat stuff and less. Look, I like games like Ghost of Tsushima and Last of Us as much as the next guy, but I miss playing stuff like Shadow of the Colossus and Resistance and, you know, Parappa the Rapper and Mr. Mosquito and that kind of shit. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway,
We'll see.
we'll see. Well, that'll be it, guys. Here's to 30 years of PlayStation.
Yes.
Yes.
Yay!
Well, anyway.
Let's hope
So
we get some older Sony back next generation.
or even this generation. We still got time. We got 4
Yeah,
years, maybe
yeah,
5
yeah.
years left in this generation. Yeah,
I'm
and
hoping so, because I don't want to get a PlayStation 6 quite yet.
yeah. Like
No.
they've all the leaks have said 2028. So I'm gonna take a guess and say that's what it is. Anyway, a couple things. Hey, we've been playing Marvel Rivals. We'll be in the Discord. If you want to join us for Marvel Rivals, that'd be cool. We do like playing
Yeah.
Marvel Rivals with y'all. So that's that.
Do it.
We got another podcast next week. And the week after the podcast might be on Saturday because I'll be traveling to San Francisco. So that's going to be a thing. And if not, if not, then hey. And then the week of the 29th, I'm giving everyone off for Christmas, so it might just be me. We'll see how everyone feels. So yeah, So yeah, well, that's the plan for the next month, and we love you guys, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Yeah.